Streaming live at truthseeker.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering the antenna stuff!
And now, your host, Truth Seeker.
Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Truth Seeker podcast. I'm Truth Seeker. We're going to get it in. We're going to be talking about all things spiritual. Got an awesome guest lined up for you guys today. We're going to get it in. This is what we're doing. We're going to be talking about meditation, mindfulness, achieving your dreams, achieving your goals by using meditation, mindfulness, essentially the power of the now moment. The now moment. That's where all the power is. That's the only thing that we have. It's the only thing that exists. We're going to be talking about that. Good friend of mine is going to be joining me here within the next few minutes. Can't go any further without saying a huge thank you to everybody who's supporting my work via Patreon, because this show is listener supported and it doesn't exist without your help. So thank you guys so much for believing in me, believing in my work, and partnering with me to bring this material out. So if you would like to partner, if my work inspires you and you're able to do that, head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeeker. There you get access to my entire discography of music, 200 plus songs. Currently working on new music. I just uploaded a new song that's over there the other day. And you get access to that stuff months before it's available to the general public. So if you're a fan of my music and you want to get in on the creative process and help fund that, definitely head over there, check that out. You also get access to our Thursday night School of the Mystics, which is our Thursday night hangout sessions that we do. You get access to our private Discord. And we also got another tier for Sunday mornings. We're doing the seer classes, which has pretty much been guided meditation, prayer, breath work, all that good stuff. So there's another tier there for that as well. So yeah, you get access to all that really cool stuff. So patreon.com/truthseeker. Shout out to some of the newest patrons we have within the last week or so. Shout out to Michael. Michael Experiencing God. I see you, brother. Richie, shout out to you. Brandon Lancaster. Yeah, those guys. Thank you so much for partnering with me, and everybody who's been doing it for however long. Thank you. Whatever you can do, it means the world. And I also want to thank, I guess publicly, my guest today, Andrew, for supporting as well. Thank you for supporting the podcast for probably over a year now or something, right? It's been a while. Thank you for partnering with me, man, and thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, brother, for sure, man. Definitely excited.
It's always cool because, like, people who are in our circle, like, you know, we have a pool of people to kind of pull from, to kind of collaborate with, network, and kind of work together. There's so many cool people in our circle, and you're one of them. Your story and just you know what I'm saying, knowing you for about a year and just knowing your story and seeing the progress, man, it's amazing. So we have a lot of cool people, and you're part of that, dude. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, man. I definitely appreciate it. Yeah, I've been listening for about a year. So yeah, it's hard to believe that time flies by, doesn't it? You know, man. and yeah, just starting into the spiritual path, you know, it's only been about 2 years since I started. So it was like, 8 months roughly when I found you, and then, you know, now another year. So we're almost to the 2 year mark of opening up to all things spiritual, seeking the truth. You know, and I found a lot of interesting things in that 2 year period of time, as I've just delved in and studied and learned and taken what served and let go of what hasn't. So I think, the place to begin is now, because that's where we are. Right. And that's what Alan Watts said. And that's one of my main teachers is Alan Watts, and then Wayne Dyer. Both of them, I think, brought the philosophy of the East of Taoism and merged it with the philosophy of Christianity in the West. And, they're great teachers, great speakers, and hold that essence, that power. And so I think out of everything I listened to and kind of incorporated into my life, those two teachers stand out the most to me, as a resource that I always fall back to, that I always continue to listen to. And I always find new stuff too. They have so much content. I think Wayne Dyer has like 100 books, man. So, I mean, there's so much stuff to learn and understand just from those two. But those were kind of my beginners, and those are who I fall back to right now as well. So a lot of information out there.
Yeah, man.
But I guess I'll just start with my story, right? Like growing up and all that seems to be the trend. So, growing up, I had it very well. I was brought up in Northern Virginia in upper middle class family. My dad was Air Force military. My mom was at home with us, so we had that connection with my mom. And then, my dad being there for us too financially, but also, having the benefits of the military to take leave, take vacations. We just had it good. We got to go to a lot of cool places. Growing up, I remember travel a lot. We got to go to like Walt Disney World, and that was a big deal because not a lot of people did that, and I went to Niagara Falls, and I didn't know this about Niagara Falls, but it's the lowest ion place in the world right now. So all these cell towers increase the ions and the energy, and Niagara Falls, because of the water dropping down, it's like one of the most healthy places. So there's all these health centers there now and stuff. And going there, I think, was kind of like my most centered spot of all the places I traveled. I felt most centered in that boat on the water going up to the falls. So I definitely remember that trip. But we got to travel all over. We went to Mexico, California, Southern California. We just got all over the place being in the military. So we were lucky in that aspect. But also we were lucky that we didn't have to move. My dad was at the Pentagon in D.C., so we got to just be right there in Northern Virginia. We had the access to D.C. and the ability to go, see the monuments, see the museums, and learn. And then, I had a big interest and still do in art, so I really enjoyed like the art galleries and the different, aspects of growing up. As I, got in through elementary school, I had that normal story of connection with people. I started very young, like probably first, second grade. I started really connecting with people, connecting with like girls, and just really making a lot of friends, and then having like girlfriends. I even remember like through third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, and just as I progressed through that, I, learned a lot, made a lot of solid connections with people, made a lot of really good friends. And in fifth grade, I had discovered the talent and ability to write. So I started writing, and there was a contest to go to a camp. So I wrote this story, and the camp was called Nature Camp. And it's still there, and it's been there for like almost 100 years. And it's just this little camp in Southern Virginia. And I wrote a story, sent it off. Like there's 200 entries, and I won. So I won a free trip to this nature camp. So I went off for a week, and when you get there, you kind of choose what you want to learn about. So you could choose to learn about mycology and mushrooms, or you could learn about botany and plants, or you could go into like a wilderness survival situation and learn how to build a fort and then sleep in it in the middle of the night. So it was really cool. Like as a fifth grader, I'm like immersed in this, and being in nature, being in touch again, that was cool too. So I get there and I choose the wilderness survival. I choose to learn to build the fort. I do it and I stay the night in it, and I'm hooked, man. So I go back several years and, just really start to learn that being in nature is where I belong. I just learned to tune in, tap in, and just absorb that energy. And I think energy is one of the main things we'll talk about today. Just we're all energy, and when you get into the energy of nature, it's just so pure. When you go through a walk in the woods, you feel good. But when you're out there and there's just nothing around, especially back in the mid 90s when there was no cell towers, there was none of this crazy heightened energy we got now. It was amazing. So that was kind of my childhood. Then you start to get into my adolescence, and we start getting into 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and that's when things shift. So I say everybody changes in middle school, everybody changes again in high school. I mean, we really change all the time, but in middle school I made some major shifts, made some different friends, started incorporating myself with high school kids in middle school and started getting influenced by people that had the influence of the high school. And, at this time too, my parents were kind of having some struggles, I feel like, and just didn't have a focus on me. So they're like, we're in a safe neighborhood. We're in an upscale community. Go ride your bike, do whatever you want. And that was safe. That was fine. I wasn't in any real danger. But I did get, too much freedom to where I could just go off, be with whoever I want, and then took that peer pressure, that negative influence to kind of explore, venture out. I started smoking weed at 12 years old and then also drinking at that age as well. So at 12 years old, my brain is still developing. I'm not even a teen yet, and I'm starting to mess with it by incorporating substances. And then we started mixing in some nicotine, stealing cigarettes from my friends' parents. And then as 13 and 14 come, we start doing this more and more. It's becoming our trend, our lifestyle. So some of us went off to sports, and that's kind of where I wanted to go. Some of us went off to drugs, and I didn't want to go there. So my center's like, go to sports, go try out for football. So I try out for this football team in 7th grade, and I barely missed the cut because I missed a tryout. And that's what their excuse was. So I really begged and pleaded because I really wanted to make this cut. I didn't make the cut. And then they tried to make another excuse. Oh, we don't have enough uniforms. Otherwise, my dad's like, I'll buy the uniforms for the whole team if you just let them, and then they just made another excuse. So that kind of affected me. That was a trigger off point that I'm like, maybe I'm not good enough. So I had a limiting belief instilled right there. And then I went off and did more drugs. I started smoking more, smoking more weed, smoking more cigarettes, drinking more often. So we had access to alcohol from, so we could take beers from my friends' parents, but we also had some adults in our life that just would buy us alcohol and stuff too, growing up in this neighborhood. So that influence came in pretty heavily. Went into my freshman year in high school as a quote unquote stoner. That was my persona. And I wanted to be popular, of course, like all the other kids. And I was seeing the kids that were popular stoners, being really, really cool. So I tried to make that persona. I really mimicked a lot of people, if that makes sense. I really just took on the personalities of other people and kind of lost who I was during this time because I was taking on personalities of other people. I'm trying to be other people to look cool. And then I'm doing things that didn't necessarily resonate, like doing the drugs and the cigarettes and alcohol, knowing my inner being didn't want that, affecting my health, but just not that, letting that ego, I would say, take over and do that. So I did that. And then the major shift happened at 15. My parents went through the divorce, went through the, split up. And then the major change came, well, do we stay in Virginia? Or my mom wanted to move to Missouri, where I am now. And so I'm like, well, I guess I want to go with my mom because she was always there, So I go with my mom. We make the change. And then, I kind of hit this major block is how I'll put it. It was just, everything was different. All my friends were gone. I come to this new place and I go to this new school. So in Northern Virginia, they just built the high school I was in, state of the art, doors locked if you smoked in it, cameras on every single corner. I mean, the first day of school, they had the whole sheriff's department there running drug dogs through the buses. I get to this new school in Missouri. It was built in 1956, right? No AC. First day I'm there is in May, and it's 102 degrees. No AC in this place. And I'm like, is this for real right now? And then as I start to incorporate and mingle with the people of the city or of the school, I start to realize these are all totally different people. And I, being a stoner, I'm like, well, where's the weed at? Everywhere. You know what I mean? I just had to go meet a kid at his locker and boom, you could do it right there in the hallway. There's no camera, no nothing. So it was a total shift. And as I did that, my first week here, I just got in trouble with my parents. My mom found out that I was smoking weed because I had gotten caught there. And that was kind of her wake-up call, like, well, we need to rein this in. So she didn't know what to do. She's calling my dad, what do we do? And they're like, well, let's put him in a psych ward and see what happens. So they do that. So my first week here, I go to this weird school, I get drugs, and then I go to a psych ward and I get more drugs, but these are the bad kind, right? They give me the Prozac, they give me some Depakote, they shoot me up with Thorazine as I'm resisting, and I get crazy, right? 2 weeks into this place, I meet some of the most insane people that I had ever met in my whole life up to that point. Like, these people just had serious problems. They were huffing gasoline, smoking embalming fluid, taking ketamine, just doing crazy stuff with these 14-year-old kids. And they're for smoking weed. And I'm like, what is going on? You know, and I get out, and 3 days later, I make the mistake and smoke weed in my house again and get caught by my mom again. So she sends me right back. So I go 2 more weeks, this time in a more intensive program at the psych ward. And they're like, you know, basically just done with me at this point, and I'm done with them. So I make it through. Insurance runs out. I knew it. So I just start freaking out right at the end when I know I'm going home. And they end up shooting me up with so much Thorazine, which is a sedative, like a horse tranquilizer, that I'm out for 3 days straight. I mean, out. They put me in a wheelchair to get me home. They put me in a wheelchair to get me in my house. I was in my bed for 2 days before I moved. And then when I moved, I just wanted water, and I drank and drank and drank water, and I didn't eat for the 3 days. Man, it was insane. So I come out of that, and summer's here. So I had met a few friends. We found out we lived next to each other, and I start, you know, going into my friendships and everything here in Missouri. I do pretty well through high school. Past that, sophomore year goes well. I do well, I get good grades. Even smoking weed through the time. I'm not doing it every day at that time, but I'm doing it pretty regularly. I get good grades and I make it through. Junior year comes up and I have a major relationship, a year-long relationship with the girl, ends it, and a depression kicks in. So I start kicking up the drugs. Well, I get caught at a middle school with the drugs, and I get involved with the law. Go thrown on probation, get thrown into another rehab. This time it's 4 months I'm in the rehab. And, you know, basically, man, it was just a huge eye-opening experience. I went in there for just smoking weed and drinking and found out about all kinds of drugs and what these other kids' experiences were. So I was, of course, peaked. I mean, they're talking about psilocybin mushrooms and doing LSD and doing all this stuff. And I just am like, well, what is this? You know, what is that like? What is this like? How do I find this? Is it possible? And so I'm like, well, I'm going to get through the system. I'm going to do my thing. And it was like a 6-month thing to get out of it. And I did. And then I'm like, well, after learning all that, I do kind of want to stay clean and sober, but I do want to also venture and explore. So I stayed clean for a little bit and then clicked back with my old friends and started smoking weed and then found some mushrooms. And then sure enough, you know, I started delving into other things, getting into some hard drugs is how we'll put it. And I get to the age of 18. I'm doing hard drugs. My 18th birthday happens in October, and I get arrested for a pot pipe. And I'm in the adult system. I'm in the adult jail this time for 20 hours. And I'm like, you know, maybe I'm making some bad choices. Maybe I'm taking the wrong road. Start to really think and reassess myself at this point. And I get to 18, and then the new year seems to be a reflection time for me. A lot of people. And I set the resolution, no more hard drugs. I'm done. And no more weed either. So I quit it. I drink every now and then because they can't test for that. But I'm done with substances at that point in my life at 18. And I go through court and I get hit pretty heavy for what I had. I got, you know, pretty heavy fine, a lot of community service and all that. I do all that. I make it through 2 years of probation, no problems. I stay away from the old friends. I got a good job and everything's going great in my life. And then kind of the same situation happened. I was in a relationship and the girl left and I went to a depression. I had found video games worked really well at that point to numb. So I started playing games heavily. And then as I started getting into the gaming community and finding out I like MLG through Halo and started getting really good, I started finding friends that smoked weed again, and I started to smoke weed again and drink again. And this time it went heavy. I went to a daily use right off the bat because that's what they were doing. So I started drinking early. What?
Gamers smoke a lot of weed, right?
They do. Yeah, that whole community. I mean, you get on, and I'm talking like 2006. So this was like 13 years ago. And yeah, they do. And so we're going to these LAN parties. We're setting up, projectors next to flat screen TVs, next to box TVs. I mean, we're setting up these things and then just getting blasted. I mean, completely messed up on drugs and alcohol, mostly weed and alcohol. And I'm doing this through my mid-20s, and I'm drinking more and more and more, and or my early 20s, 22, and drinking more and more and more, and I start to realize I'm slipping a lot of ways. My sleep is messed up, everything's messed up, and I finally lose the good job I had. And that really sets the depression in, because I'm like, well, that was where all my friends were. I still have my gamer friends. I go over to their house, but I'm kind of bothering them now because I don't have the money. You know what I mean? I don't have the resources coming in, bringing all that weed in, buying everybody dinners and stuff like I was doing when I had the good job and no bills. So I start to dissociate from people. I start to go ahead and switch from Halo to Oblivion. And Oblivion's a role-playing game where I just am in my own world. And I would chat with my friends while I'm in my own world, but I was pretty dissociated. I didn't really talk to people at all as I played that game. And I got immersed in that game pretty heavily, and then found another game called Phantasy Star, which is like a MMORPG. It's like World of Warcraft, but it was on a platform 360. So I played that, and I found friends. I found a community. I found a group, and that was what I was after. I was looking for connection. So that's when the video game addiction hit hard. And alcohol kind of dissipated out during that time, but I was still smoking, still eating so unhealthy, sitting around 10, 12, 14 hours a day. And then during those days, I would just devour 3,000 calories of Wendy's, McDonald's, and Pizza Hut. I mean, seriously, bad food, bad choices.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
That was what it was, bro. It was McDonald's for breakfast, Wendy's for lunch, Pizza Hut for dinner, and then Pizza Hut for the next morning's breakfast, bro. It was bad. And I was doing that day in, day out, months, years at a time. Probably 2 years I stayed into the illusion of the Phantasy Star Universe world, and, started to come out of that when I realized I'm out of money. I'm out of free everything. I need to get a job. So I go get a job, and the first job I get back in the real world, out of video game world, is sketchy, bro. It's selling fake toner cartridges, so we're not even mailing anything to businesses, just taking credit card money. I mean, straight stealing. And I do it for about 2 days, and I'm like, yeah, I can't do it. And they're like, well, why not? You're good at it. Because I was selling them. And I was like, yeah, I could talk, but I'm not doing it. I'm out. And they're like, well, what if we promote you and we do this and that? And I'm like, I'm out. So I left that day. I went to another job that I found online, applied for it, and got hired on the spot. So I start working there, and there I'm selling on the phone again, telemarketing again. But this time it's legit. I'm selling newspaper ads. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm doing this legit job. I'm there for about 2 weeks. I'm doing okay. It's not bad. I'm like working half a day, and then I could go play my video game. So it was working out. I was building up some money, and then a girl comes in to the job, and she had worked there before, and I'm like, whoa, what's up? And I'm like, oh, I need some social dynamic skills, because I haven't talked to a real girl in a few years. When you go back and look at it, I'm like, oh, what's up? So I actually get her to chat with me online, because that's my comfort zone, right? I get her to chat with me on Yahoo Chat or Yahoo Messenger, and we start talking. And then as we started talking, we, just clicked. We started vibing. We found a lot of common interests. We found a lot of things that we just shared. And this is my wife I'm talking about. And we basically just clicked. We hit it off. And so we go on a date, and then we start to get together. And before I know it, I'm staying at her house every night. I'm starting to just really vibe with her. I'm, running my house back over on the one side of town, running over to her house, helping her on the other side of town, and we're just hitting it off. And as I'm doing this, and I'm getting up super early in the morning to manage 2 houses, and I'm, starting to find responsibility and things like that, because she had a baby at the time, which is now my adopted son. who was a 6-month-old baby when we met, then, you know, I started to gain this responsibility, this new insight to life. I'm like, whoa, I could have a family. I could have this connection with this girl. I could have these things. So that was when the wake-up call started to happen, which is almost 11 years ago. So I quit alcohol completely. I was still smoking weed every now and then, but I quit the daily habit. And then, long story short, with Amy and I, my wife and I, we basically, you know, just hit it off real well. We did well. We had a breaking point about a year in. I hit that depression again, went back to the same habits, video games and weed. And 2 months later, I decided, you know what, I'm not doing this. I'm making a shift. I'm going to change. I go to college. And I'm like, all right, I'm in college. I'm just going to text Amy and see what she's doing, you know, and kind of check in on her. And so I text her, I tell her what I'm doing with my life, that I have plans, that I'm going to do big things. And we get together again, and we just hit it right back off, right where we left off. And the story's, you know, history since. So about 5 years ago, we had Jerry, my youngest son. And then about 7 years ago, I adopted Hogan as my son. And we told him, you know, the story of his life. And it's been a great process to have the kids, to be a parent, to be a father. It's really woken me up to, okay, this is what I did. I took this dark road to grow up, and but now I'm learning. I know that responsibility is key, that staying present in the moment is key, and that everything is energy. And then 2 years ago, it was 3 years ago this month, I decided to lose weight. So my mom was a diabetic. My family had a history of diabetes, and we basically just had a lot of health problems in our family. Well, I go to the doctor 3 years ago, and they tell me, okay, well, you're pre-diabetic. You're at a very high risk for high blood pressure. And I weighed almost 300 pounds. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. You know, I'll do something about it. I'll try this. I'll try that. So I did. I tried a little diet here. I tried to cut back on my eating here. But every time, 9 o'clock at night, I would find myself in the kitchen getting into the box of Cheez-Its or opening a carton of Ben & Jerry's, and then half of it gone. I mean, I had some bad eating habits. And then one day I was just like, you know what, forget it. I'm gonna study this diet called keto, and I'm going to try it. So I read everything I could read about keto. I got on Google, I got on Reddit, I read the forums, I looked at progress pictures. I mean, I did everything. And then a month after doing that, I just jumped off, and I said, all right, I'm not eating sugar anymore. I'm not eating carbs anymore. Whatever you want to make for dinner is fine, but I got to make chicken and green beans for dinner every night for the week. And so I did that for a week, and man, after a week, I lost like 10 pounds. And I felt a lot better. I was clearer. I was like more, just with it. And that was just cutting sugar out of my life. And then a month in, I lost 35 pounds. So I'm like, whoa, what's this? You know, and I felt good. I felt healthy. I wasn't like depriving myself. I was eating, you know, I was eating like bacon and eggs every single day. I was eating like a nice big salad every day for lunch, and then a good dinner, like steak and asparagus or steak and green beans. So, I mean, I wasn't depriving myself in any way. I was eating like, you know, abundantly. And basically, I do this for 10 months and I lose over 100 pounds. And everybody's like, around me is like, well, what did you do? How did you do it? What's going on? I go to the dentist. They don't even recognize me. They're like, who are you? No, that's not the picture we had. What did you do? You know, like, that's amazing. So I start, you know, sharing my story with that, and just my experience with that. And then into last year, I just, you know, continued on. I started working out. I started to get healthy. I started to be up early in the morning. I started to just really be on that health kick. Like, look what I did. You know, I lost all this weight. I'm on this health kick. I've got all this knowledge. I'm ready to just boost it forward. So I did. I started working out, started doing great things, and then had a major death happen in the family. And that kind of set me back. Got into a depression. Never really had a major death that I dealt with yet. So I was like, whoa, what's going on? So I go back to the depression, but unlike before, I didn't have a number. I didn't go to video games. I didn't go to alcohol. I didn't go to drugs. I stayed sober. I tried to get it out at the gym, but that just didn't work. And I tried to get it out by, listening to different music and drawing and doing art. I think those were ways I coped before, but that wasn't working either. I was seeking something more. So I started to delve in and research, like, how do you remove depression? How do you get out of this state? And I started to find spirituality. I found the book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I read it. And I read it again. I was like, whoa. And then I read it a third time, and I started to study him. And I was like, this guy has an idea. This guy has a concept from ancient Toltecs that really, whoa, that makes sense. Like, don't take anything personally. And that's such a big thing that so many people do. And that was just one of the agreements. So I started to follow the four agreements. I started to stop taking everything personally. I started to live my life with more compassion and love, and just stay more present in the now. And, just that was my kicking off point. From there, I found Abraham Hicks and started to study Abraham's Hicks work, which is Esther and Jerry Hicks is a couple. Esther channels Abraham, and Abraham is supposedly a spirit or soul that comes through Esther when she goes into a trance. And the messages I was hearing from Esther or Abraham were just so profound to me. They were so full of love and light. They made a lot of sense that there was two parts of you. There's the source energy part of you, and there's the part of you that's the ego or the self. And, one follows the other. And as one talks, the other's quiet, and stuff like that. And so I started to really study. And then hearing Abraham, she was talking about doing meditation to get to that state, to get to that trance state. And I'm like, okay, well, I could probably meditate for 15 minutes every day. Let's try that. And I tried it in the middle of the summer. It was hard. We were busy. Things were going on. So I tried to do it as I woke up, but I couldn't really quiet my mind was what I thought I needed to do in meditation. I couldn't get there. So I just said, you know what, forget it. I can't quiet my mind. So I can't do it. And then all of a sudden I get this sharp pain one morning. I find out I have a hernia, and I'm in emergency surgery. I mean, most pain I've ever felt for 8 hours straight, like near-death experience type of pain, and just blacking out, starting to go in and out kind of thing. And then I have a 2-month recovery window right after that. So I make it through that. I have a 2-month recovery window, and I really started to wake up. I'm like, all right, well, in these 2 months, I'm going to really just apply myself to the meditation. I'm going to apply myself to gain all the knowledge I can and take what serves me and let go of what doesn't. And I found God and the Bible served me. I found praying during the day, praying before my meals helped me just get transcendental, helped me get closer to my source, as Abraham would call it, and started to follow that process of prayer. And I was brought up in like the Church of Christ. So we had learned prayer, through the church, and we had learned about God and all the Bible stories, we learned as kids. So I was brought up with that Western view of the Bible and church and everything. So I kind of went back to that. Well, as I was doing that, I was like, well, what's this guy Deepak Chopra saying? Like, he talks about meditation, but he's from the East. What's he got to say? So I start reading his stuff. I start listening to his stuff. I start listening to his meditations, and I start getting deep. And then I start learning about yoga, and then Ayurveda, and then all of the other Eastern traditions. And I find out they're calling spirit Shakti in yoga. They have the same name for what Western Christianity had. I'm like, whoa, okay. So we have the Holy Spirit here. We have Shakti here. And then I find Taoism through Alan Watts and Wayne Dyer, and they're calling it Qi. And I'm like, whoa, what's this? It's the same thing again, And so I'm like, all right, well, these are all lining up. Everything's just lined up. And then as you research, there's 45,000 different gods and deities ranging from a crawfish to a man, and it just is a matter of what you pick and choose. So I started to do that. I started to pick and choose, and I'm like, yeah, I like the Taoism philosophy. I like the Tao Te Ching, easy to read, great philosophy. The philosophers that learned it and study it, Wayne Dyer and Alan Watts, I resonate well with. So yeah, let's go with that. And then I started listening to Eckhart Tolle and his book, The Power of Now, and getting into the now moment. And then just found book after book after book about spirituality, and they all said the same thing. We are not our thoughts, right? We have thoughts, but who's thinking those thoughts? And what happens when you start to think about thinking? And what happens when you start to think about your thinking, and then you go in and you go in and you go in until you're just stopped? And when you go into meditation, I think the deepest form of meditation is when you start thinking about thinking, and then you get focused on what happens naturally, your breath. And that's your connection to spirit. That's your connection to your soul, is your breath. And so as you put your focus on your connection to your soul, you get deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's why you see, Buddhists on their way to enlightenment sit for 8 hours a day in a cave, to try and gain that connection, gain that insight, gain that knowledge. And I don't think it takes 8 hours a day. So I started a daily meditation practice, started with guided meditations, like I was saying with Deepak Chopra's guided meditations, and then Esther Hicks had one. I listened to hers. There's so many. And I really found some that worked, some that didn't, some that really helped, but all of them were calming me down. All of them were helping me deal with anxiety, deal with stress, deal with the stories I was telling myself, and then the stories I kept reliving from my childhood, that were making me upset or making me angry. And so I was finding I was getting more and more calm and less angry. I was doing it completely naturally just by following my breath, taking 10 minutes to close my eyes and just focus on my breath. Of course, I'd think during that time. So sometimes it would be 2 breaths I would go, and then 2 minutes I would go into some thought about what color of car I'm going to see today. And then it leads off, and then I come right back and I'm like, oh yeah, I need to think about my breath. And I'll do 2 more breaths, and then 2 more minutes of thinking, and then 2 more breaths, and then 2 more minutes of thinking. By the end of the 10 minutes, if I've spent a total of 30 seconds on my breath, I can feel so much more calm and relaxed, even though I spent 9.5 minutes thinking. So
that's funny.
I think that the thing about meditation is, everybody's like, oh, you got to quiet your mind. You got to stay focused on one point or it doesn't work. I think that's such a misconception. And then I also think that, we're all energy. We're all here, full of emotions and full of actions and things that we do. And then the thoughts we think, and they say we think about 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And 95% of those thoughts were from yesterday. Unless you're learning a lot, unless you're absorbing a lot of new content, 95% of what you thought yesterday is going on right now. And so we're constantly just thinking machines from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed. And I think when we take that time to just set in, get into a space, focus on your breath, and slow that process down of thinking all the time by focusing on one point, we start to counteract and we start to improve. And science has proved it. I mean, they show meditation, has reduced stress, but also reduced aging, and illness and all other things.
I got a question. So I've got, hey, can you turn me down a little bit? We're starting to get that feedback now when I talk. Yeah. So I got a picture of you pulled up here on the screen that I'm going to show. You said that people didn't recognize you whenever you came to, to the dentist or whatever. How big were you? This person doesn't look like you in this picture here. It's the one with you and your wife. You have the before and after that you have on your profile.
Yeah.
How big did you get before you start losing all that weight?
I didn't hop on a scale during the whole video game time when it was at its worst. So if I had to guess, maybe 300 pounds. When I did hop on the scale at the doctor to be told I was pre-diabetic, I was 285 is what the medical record shows. So I got the papers still in a folder that shows the medical record that I'm pre-diabetic, what my test results were, because I kept it all. I wanted to see what my test results were before keto and after keto. And because everybody's like, oh, your cholesterol is going to go way up eating that bacon every day. I literally ate bacon every day for the 10 months almost. I mean, there was a few days I missed it. But
what about your wife, man? She looks like she lost a lot of weight too.
Same thing. Yeah. So she did keto too. Weight wise, can't really say for sure. But she's at a healthy weight now and definitely is maintaining it. So she did the same thing. She did keto for about 5-6 months and lost it all. And then we just kind of switched our diet off of keto because we were doing what's called lazy keto, where you eat keto through the week. And keto, for an overview, is 20 carbs a day or less. So when you look at a gram of sugar, that's a carb. When you look at a Mountain Dew, that's 56 carbs, a 12-ounce can. So like sugar is everywhere in every food. You go to the gas station to try and get something to eat, you're not getting anything to eat without carbs unless you go to meat, like beef jerky or cheese. So that's basically what keto was meat and cheese. And then I found a newfound love for vegetables. So I found out that I liked broccoli, that I liked cauliflower, that I liked spaghetti squash, asparagus. I never tried any of these things before that diet. I was scared to. Like if you told me to try guacamole, I wouldn't because it was green. I mean, it was just like, but I tried it and I was like, oh, I like guacamole. What's an avocado taste like? Oh, I like avocados. Those are keto friendly. Let's do it. So that's all we did. We just made a shift in our perception of what food was. So food to us before, like when we were in that picture on that airplane, we were eating, like I said, fast food all the time. And if we didn't eat fast food, guess where our dinner came from? The freezer, bro. Every time. Like we would just get that Stouffer's lasagna, pop it in there and eat that, or we would eat just something out of the freezer. That seemed to be what we did. We never made anything fresh. We never bought really fresh produce unless it was fruit. We never really brought in anything that was that healthy. And like I said, man, I had a box of Cheez-Its on hand all the time. I had a bag of Doritos on hand all the time. And this time of year, we get the biggest temptation, Girl Scout cookies. And man, I would eat a whole sleeve of those Thin Mint Girl Scout
Oreos.
Cookies, man.
I got a buddy of mine. I'm not gonna say his name, but he's got stomach issues, right? He's got that what's that disease? Whatever, you going to the bathroom all the time or whatever. It's just a disease. IBS or whatever. Yeah. And they telling him what to eat and stuff. He's like, man, my stomach's all jacked up. I'm like, what'd you have for breakfast? He's like, well, I went into the fridge and I grabbed a pizza. He pulls the meat and cheese off of it. So he eats the meat and cheese and then a whole sleeve of Oreos. And then talking about how his stomach's all jacked up and, he got to go to the doctor. We're like, bro, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life, man?
Yeah, it's crazy. So, yeah, that was like my
Crohn's
unconscious choice that really made the big transformation.
Crohn's disease. So you were faithful with the 15 minutes every day of meditation. Some people think, well, if you got to go in, it's got to be an hour, it's got to be 30 minutes. I don't have time for that. 15 minutes. Just getting it in.
Well, I try to set that as today standard. So I started November 9th, 2017. So over a year ago. On a daily practice. And when I started on that day, my goal was to just do 15 minutes when I woke up and 15 minutes at bed, kind of like a bookend to my day. Mm-hmm. And so I did that. I would sit up right in bed and I'd pick up my phone just to push play because I'd have it ready the night before. And I'd push play on a guided meditation. And it could be any guided meditation. I don't remember in particular what I picked, but just something to kind of help my attention stay focused and come back to my breath and come back in. So there's a style of meditation called Vipassana meditation that really sat well. And that was one that I kind of went to all the time often, where it would start you off and say, okay, you're going to pay attention to breathing in and the sensations that come and breathing out and the sensations that come. You don't try to control your breath. You just breathe in, breathe out naturally, but you're paying attention to it. And that's a hard feat for some people in general, just coming right off the bat. When I say breathe consciously, you change from automatic to manual breathing just by following that instruction. Mm-hmm. So when you say breathe consciously, but don't control your breath, it's a hard thing to do if you've never done it before. So that in itself takes practice, because as you put your attention on it, you automatically start to breathe deeper. And then you're like, well, am I controlling it because I'm breathing deeper, or am I breathing deeper because I'm putting attention on it? And it's kind of a way out on how that works. But yeah, once you get to that state, you can pay attention to your breath without consciously controlling it. Then you're kind of in that mode of connection. And then as you do that more and more often, that's why they call it a practice, you get better at it. And as you get better at it, you go deeper into a meditation. So some of them, 15 minutes is a good time for me, because my attention span after 15 minutes, I'm like, I'm done, but I've gone into some that were 20. I've done yoga classes where there's a 30-minute meditation afterward, and I've sat through the 30 minutes, but I definitely lost my train, well before the bell rang, and was way off into thought, or whatever, even sitting quietly. So, it doesn't have to be a set time. I say, even if you can take 1 minute, there had been so many times when I started this practice, I would get stressed. I'd get anxious, and I'm like, well, I need to meditate, but I only got a minute. So I'd straight up go somewhere where I could sit on the floor, get my spine aligned in a cross-legged position, and I'd play a 1 minute meditation, and I would just sit for 1 minute, having somebody talk about the 1 minute meditation that they do. Because there's so many guided ones out there. You can pick 1, 2, 3 minutes. What do you got? You got 4 minutes? Do a 4 minute meditation. And some of those were, I wouldn't say a waste of time. They weren't so beneficial, but some of them in 4 minutes, I had a total shift to my day. Yeah. I had things changed completely around, from anxiety and getting nervous to
overwhelmed.
And getting overwhelmed to, hey, what's up? And they're like, what just happened to you, bro? You were all messed up just a minute ago. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good now. I'm good. And then what do we got? What do we got to get taken care of? Because right now I work in high pressure. I'm a customer service rep, so I have to provide the service in a timely manner to get things sorted. And in this day and age, what do we expect? Okay, Google, what's the answer? Well, that's what they expect with service too. And and basically, that's what people expect now. They want the Siri, the Google, or Alexa at their fingertips to solve their problem. And if you aren't there and available to do that, then people get upset quick. So I have that high pressure job, and so there are some situations I find myself in where I really need to go and meditate at the job. I need to just get away from the screens, get away from the phones ringing in my ears and all the people and all the stress. And I will. And I have a spot that I can just go and get away. So.
Yeah, meditation's good. I remember before I knew anything about the breath or would have taken a minute, like I would walk off by myself and just start praying. Start praying, just kind of getting that connection clear between you and God, or you and Source, or whatever. Start speaking over your day, whether you feel uneasy in your body, in your mind, the chatter. People go through some weird stuff psychologically, and the stress of a job and being talked down to bosses and stuff like that, so you kind of get away just to find that few moments of, I like to do them together, prayer and meditation. They kind of go hand in hand for me. I say
definitely do.
Prayers where you talk to God, meditations where God talks to you, essentially, right? Let me ask you this, man. This may be kind of a hard question, or at least a hard answer. And I want to be careful how I preface this, not to offend anybody really, but where does spirituality and obesity meet, right? I have this weird, not just being overweight, not being out of shape, right? But obesity from someone who, like, is it hard to receive from that person? Because, like, I remember going to some churches back in the day, and there was a whole family. They led revivals and stuff like that, and everybody loved them. But they weren't just overweight. They were, like, obese. Like, the kids, everybody was just, like, really big. And it was hard for me to kind of to take them seriously about spirituality, about God. Obviously, discipline comes in. The Bible talks about self-control. If you're a spiritual person walking in the Spirit, you're going to have self-control. You're not just going to be slamming stuff in your mouth. You're not just going to have these addictions or whatever where you can't stop them, these unhealthy addictions. Where does that come into play with you? I mean, because that was a spiritual practice or whatever, just losing weight. Is it just discipline? What is it? Where does that come into play with, like, obesity?
So I'll come at you with this. I think we all have our conditions in our life, and we have these programs and patterns. We all work in patterns. We all work in programs. And as we get programmed with even one limiting belief, our whole perception can change. So I shared the story of not making the football team. I had the limiting belief, I'm not good enough to play. And then what happened in my consciousness was I was a healthy kid. I could run the mile in 5 minutes and 50 seconds. I could ride a bike for 15 miles and not stop. I mean, I was healthy. I was more than capable of being on a football team and running football. And I played football all the time, and because I put that limiting belief in my head at 13 years old, I began to not care, as much. And that's why I think the drugs and alcohol and the other health things like smoking, I would have never smoked if I was on a football team, right? Because smoking is such a bad habit. It messes with your breathing. One, what do you got to do to play sports? You got to breathe. Two, it's, injecting your system with drugs. So, that messes you up. But to circle back to the question, I think that if you have just even one limiting belief, that you can get into a pattern that just messes you up. And as you tell yourself the same story, I'm not good enough was my story, you can fall into the pattern of the drugs, or food can be a drug. McDonald's can be a drug. I know people I knew people, and I was one that would go there every day and used it as a pill to kind of just solve an issue. When I was working the good job, I actually worked late at night. This is an interesting story. I would get off work at 2:30. McDonald's started serving breakfast at 3. And I would go and wait in McDonald's parking lot to get in the drive-thru the very first person, so that 3 o'clock hit, I could order my sausage biscuit with cheese and 2 hash browns. Every day I did that for over a year.
Yeah.
And that was my meal. And so I took that as a pill because I was depressed. I was sad. I was angry. I had limiting beliefs. I had things going on in my head that weren't there. And I had kind of abandoned all hope at that time. I abandoned spirituality and all that. So the question of being in the church while being obese, I think, can be very prevalent, because you can hold the belief in God. You can hold the belief in the Bible, because I feel like religion gives us a purpose, right? So we hold our purpose in religion, but we also hold our purpose that we aren't good enough to do, or whatever the belief is that's causing the behavior that we don't truly desire. I mean, most people in this country that are getting obese, getting overweight, dealing with this epidemic of eating unhealthy, aren't doing it consciously. They're doing it subconsciously. They're doing it because of an underlying experience. Yeah. And so as I've started to learn meditation, I've learned, like I said, breath work, but I've also learned about health and vitality and wellness. And through health and vitality and wellness, you start to pay attention to a lot of things. Your heart has a pattern, and they've developed a strategy called heart math that you can follow and track your heart with this monitor, and you can put yourself in transcendental states and meditation just by using that heart math. Your sleep patterns are so important. If you don't sleep right, you can fall into, trying to eat food, chug down coffee, and just get yourself full of energy drinks. And what do energy drinks have too? Sugar. I mean, so, there's that aspect of it. And every year, I think we get like 15 new companies making energy drinks. So it's growing. People are not deterring from that at all. And then also going back to meditation, I've started to, put in kind of a self-hypnosis process into myself, to kind of change my belief on the certain things. So the first thing I did was quit smoking over 5 years ago. And the cigarettes was so hard because and I had just gone to it. And smoking for me was like a form of meditation. I would get away from people. And what do you do when you smoke? You breathe deeply. And I didn't realize this, but I thought cigarettes were relaxing me. I found out the cigarette wasn't relaxing me. It was pumping me full of this drug called nicotine, which is a stimulant. I was relaxed because I was breathing deeply. Yeah. And my breath work through the smoking, the constant,
have to take that cigarette break.
Yeah, the constant smoking. I was relaxing myself through breath unconsciously. And so I tied, okay, smoking relaxes me. I can't quit smoking. As soon as I changed that belief, and then I changed the other belief that if I become a non-smoker, I'm going to be jealous of all the smokers. I was set. So the way I did that was, I'll just give a plug. A guy named Alan Carr wrote a book called The Easy Way to Quit Smoking. And he was hypnotized to find this method. by a hypnotherapist. And he wrote this book and tells his experience with the hypnotherapist and the method that he discovered through his subconscious mind and hypnotherapy. And the method is, in a nutshell, you just have to believe a story. So the story I told myself was, if I see somebody smoking in a car next to me, I'm envious of them because I don't get to smoke, as I'm quitting smoking. Well, I changed that story to, okay, I see somebody in the car smoking next to me. Now I get to pity them. I get to say, oh, how sad for you. You have to sit there in that car while it's 10 degrees outside with all your windows up, and now you're going to smell like smoke all day. So I changed my perception. Maybe that's judgmental of me, but that's what I had to do to get my mind wrapped around the idea that I didn't need it, that I didn't need to be that person. And so I applied that to everything else. I started to apply it to the weight loss. And I was like, you know what? Sure, I'm at this restaurant and I have to choose a salad with ranch dressing and no toppings because that's all they have. While this person next to me gets fish and chips, this person next to me gets a pizza, whatever. But I would just take that same concept, like, oh, how sad, you guys have to eat that greasy food and feel awful in the bathroom for 20 minutes after. That was the story I told myself to get through those harder times when it was easy to cheat, when it was easy to say, yeah, I could go off the diet, I can have a pizza this once. But I didn't do that. I just stayed, and I stayed focused and stayed determined.
Because you got to fight those excuses too at the same time, because your mind's steadily coming up with excuses why you can. Right. I remember when I was trying to do the vegetarian diet, and I'd be doing really good, and I'd be tempted with McDonald's, I'd be tempted with Burger King or Taco Bell. In my mind, the excuse that I would come up with was, it's not real meat anyway. It's like soy. It's soy. I can get a burger. It's not even real meat. It's soy. I'm not eating meat. You come up with these weird justifications to do something, so you kind of have to because we're all subconsciously, responding to our beliefs because of stories and what we've been told, whether it's religion, whether it's how you eat, your diet, or whatever. You're doing it subconsciously. So why not actively do it? Why not actively retrain the mind? Because we can do it, and it works.
That's exactly it. Because
you know what I'm saying? Look at somebody who's doing that, and you're like, man, I want to do that too. You're like, know what? I don't want to do it because it leads to this and it leads to that, and I'm going to be, So every time you see it, it reminds you of the bad stuff, and that's good. I mean, that's what happens to a lot of people in religion, right? They throw off their sins, or even vegans or whatever the case is. They throw off their sins and their bad habits, and they're introduced to some new truth, and then they just run crazy with it, telling everybody, right? Because it reminds them of the person they used to be or the pitfalls that they were once in, and so they want to go out and tell everybody. They're excited about it, but they had to retrain their thinking, and it reminds them of something bad. If I see you doing that, this is what happens.
That's exactly it. And so it really comes down to our thoughts. And as you meditate, I think you start to slow your thoughts down. And as you slow your thoughts down, like a Buddhist does, and you think the same patterns over and over to train them towards something productive with your life, then you start to retrain your subconscious mind. You start to change those limiting beliefs. So I've gotten rid of that story of I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough. In so many areas, the football story is one thing, but look at all of the time you spend in childhood that you're told no. There are so many limiting beliefs that people hang on to from that childhood that carries on as an adult. And so I think that's why, hypnosis and meditation, which is basically the same thing, and prayer, all work simultaneously to help you tell yourself a new story, to retrain the subconscious mind. Because once the subconscious mind and the conscious mind work together, then you start to see the shift. Then you start to see the change. That's why I'm a non-smoker almost 6 years this year. That's why I'm still at a healthy weight after 3 years of making the conscious change and being almost diabetic, almost myself because of the food choices. That's why, you pick the addiction. I've kind of overcome it. I quit alcohol the beginning of 2018. Didn't drink a drop of alcohol in 2018, and just did it just to do it, just to see how would I feel if I quit drinking? How would my life be different? And on this spiritual path, that's kind of one of those things that people take especially in yoga, which is kind of the direction I've gone, is yoga and Eastern tradition. No alcohol. So Buddhists will say, take a 5-year vow to not drink alcohol. And I'd heard that story, and I was like, well, I'll just take a 1 year and see what I do. And here I am, almost 10% into 2019, I still haven't drank. I've had the temptation, I've had the offer, but I feel better. My sleep patterns are better. I feel like renewed. I mean, there are some times when, yeah, sure, I'd love to go have a drink to kind of numb a situation, or just to even have that social aspect that drinking provides. But I use that same concept that I used with everything else. Just tell myself the new story. I don't need it, and I'll be a better person without it. Is my personal opinion. I don't judge other people that drink. My wife still will drink. My friends will still drink, and I'm okay with that. Bring the alcohol in the house. Come and have a drink. Come and have fun. I just don't choose to participate because I'm on this path, and I want to do my own thing. And then vegetarian diet too, same type of deal. So my older brother, I don't really contact that much. He's a lot older than me. He's almost 15 years older than me. And my mom had passed last year, and he showed up, and we connected and reminisced and kind of went through some stories. And he had been a vegetarian for 10 years. And I didn't know that. Or I think I did know it, but I'd forgotten it. And I was like, well, why'd you go vegetarian? Being on the spiritual path, I hang out with a lot of vegans and yoga and stuff like that. I'm like, well, why'd you go? And he's like, meat never really sat well with me. It doesn't really do much for my body, and I function better without it, I feel like. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And so like the very next week, I'm eating a lot of meat, eating a lot anyway, just coping, because that's still a coping mechanism, still going to food. Yeah. But the week after that, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try a vegetarian diet, just see what happens if I cut out meat. And at first I wanted to do what's called pescatarian. I wanted to do seafood only. Yeah. And because I really like some seafood, man. But I was like, no, I'll just do a week of vegetarian. And then my mindset changed after 7 days even of telling myself the story of, you don't eat meat, you're not a meat eater, you're not eating meat, you eat vegetables. Yeah. And then it changed, and I was shifted into this, okay, I'm a vegetarian now. And 9 months in now, I'm like, do I go back to meat or do I stay vegetarian? Because I'm doing well on it. I'm eating healthy. I feel good. I have energy. Everybody's like, where do you get your protein from? I'm like, I don't know. I don't track it, but I'm healthy. I can lift weights up. I can do yoga. I can, do these exercises just fine. It's not hurting me. So I'm gonna stick with it. It's making me feel successful, and it also kind of puts me in a temporary discomfort, which I kind of thrive on anyway. So just going into that a little bit, like Stoicism is a philosophy from the ancient Greeks, Marcus Aurelius. And as I studied, mindfulness meditation, I found a book called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, who's a Stoic. And then I studied the Stoic philosophy. And the Stoic philosophy in a nutshell is just putting yourself in discomfort on purpose to make yourself ready for those major discomforts that hit us, right? Like I backed into a car the other week, and I handled it totally different than I would have 5 years ago. Because it was a nice car in a nice neighborhood, and I felt really bad about it, but I handled it so much differently because I had done these Stoic practices. So like Stoicism, if you look it up, a lot of Stoics or people that follow Stoicism will do things like take cold showers or sleep on the floor at night some nights, or just open a window in the winter and turn the heat off to 60 and get it cold and just feel that cold while you're sleeping. I love it. And waking up to it, just getting your feet on the ground and walking out. And so just doing those kinds of practices have helped me become stronger. I don't do them regularly enough to be like completely especially like opening the window and sleeping on the floor, but I have done them and I feel like they've made me stronger. So I think that kind of came into play too with breaking addictions and just changing patterns with eating and changing from one thing to the next is because you are in a temporary discomfort, but that temporary discomfort in the long run is going to help you be strong. It's going to help you grow, and and it's going to help you, be a better person.
Yeah. Anytime you're dealing with those instant gratifications, man, it gets, you get into.
Yeah. It can get way out of control.
Yep. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Food is definitely one of those. I remember when I was driving a truck and I didn't want to be there, right? I'm going to do this job, and it was long days. Like some days were 17-hour days, 19-hour days, crazy stuff. And I would just hate being there. But one thing that would help, like I would reward myself with like crazy fast food. You know what I'm saying? I would do that too while I was driving, and then I would learn on my route the different restaurants and the different gas stations that had really good chicken or pizza or whatever the case is. And whenever I drive by them, I would stop there because I knew I had a 4-hour drive ahead of me or whatever, and to kind of help me get there, I would just like be like rewarding myself with the instant gratification. And that's the whole thing with doing drugs, eating, any of those addictions. Pornography is the instant gratification.
That's exactly
gratification. And like the more I study and the further I get along, it's like you find out that that's where the danger is, because you got to work for that stuff. You don't just deserve to be happy. You have to work to be happy. You don't deserve a good relationship. You have to work for a good relationship, right? All of this stuff. For like a nice body. You don't deserve a nice body. You have to work for that body.
Right.
You don't deserve a nice platform. You have to build it and work for your platform, or whatever the case is. Everything is done with hard work and just one day at a time. And so the instant gratifications, we look at that and we can kind of get deeper to find out what those triggers are. Like, how did it get there? Why am I doing this all the time? Why am I looking at pornography? Why am I slamming cheeseburgers every chance I get? Find out why. And then change the narrative. Tell yourself something different that's going to help you, not do it, right? Or to do the things that you're supposed to be doing. Why you should do it. Retrain your mind, because you know what I'm saying? It's happening anyway. The reason that you're doing these harmful addictions or these harming your body or whatever the case is, you've been trained some way, whether it was some kind of type of trauma or, sexual frustration or whatever the case is, that kind of makes you want to seek after those instant gratifications. You got to undo it. You got to almost, reverse the curse even, right?
Yeah, you really do. And it's that you put it so well there, reverse the curse and instant reward, because I think the instant reward factor of like things you're talking about, pornography, is an instant reward. It can help you achieve that goal instantly, or you can eat a great In-N-Out burger with greasy fries. You can get that in 10 minutes and it tastes so, so good. And afterward, it sets well and you just feel good for the next 20 minutes because you've got all those, especially like McDonald's or anything like that, but you've got all those good chemicals running through, the endorphins getting released from eating that food. And then, what did you achieve? You just ingested 2,500 calories. Now you're like, whoa, what? Maybe I don't feel so good. And so you feel good in that time, in that short time afterward, and it gives you that instant gratification. But, at the same time, that numbness starts to go away and you look for the next source of numbness. You look for the next addiction. And coming from addiction to addiction to addiction, I definitely understand this well. There's a guy named Gabor Mate. And I don't know if you've heard of Tim Ferriss podcast.
Yeah.
He's on the Tim Ferriss podcast, and Tim Ferriss set up a special podcast just for this guy that ran 22.5 hours. And that podcast just by itself, if you get a chance to listen to this guy, has so much insight and knowledge. But for me, I've been interested in addictions, not only to handle my own and heal my own, but to help heal theirs, as I've overcome so many. And Gabor goes into, his own addictions, but he has so much profound knowledge and techniques to help others. Like, he fills up auditoriums with people because he's a really smart guy about it. So he's definitely worth checking out when it comes to, if you're looking for help for addictions, you're watching this, you're like, man, they're talking about what I'm doing. I'm eating McDonald's every day. I'm watching porn every single day, and I'm smoking cigarettes, and I'm drinking alcohol. Like, how did he do this? I'm stuck. Check into the resources for help. Look at that book Alan Carr wrote, and look at this guy Gabor Mate, and just these guys, have the answer in all subjects, right? We want to learn something, we can learn it. I mean, I heard you talk about the Spirit Science channel the other day. You want to learn about spirit, you can watch 12 episodes of that and you become pretty enlightened or pretty aware of spirit, just in a nutshell, from, a couple hours worth of video this guy's put, because he just demonstrates it so well. He uses visuals and props and the right words so well, it helps you learn. And so we have those resources available to us in this day. That just makes it a lot easier to overcome if your intention is set to overcome, anything that you want to, whether that be sleep patterns, successful thinking. You want to learn about the stoicism and delayed gratification to help achieve higher goals and deal with discomfort as it comes. I mean, you want to learn about hypnosis and how to change your, beliefs through a trance-like state. There's so much stuff out there. It really is incredible how much you can learn.
On all of the stuff, the weight loss, achieving your goals, all of this stuff for you has came out of meditation. Is that something you deal with or wrestle with or put the energy out there to achieve through meditation? Like knowing that that's the place I go to, the now moment, to kind of birth this stuff or whatever? How does that work for you?
Yeah. So, so many experts say it takes 3 weeks to make a change or 30 days to make a change, or you just ask a stranger on the street, how many days does it take to stop smoking? How many days does it stop to stop eating unhealthy? And they'll give you 30 days. They'll give you 3 weeks. But really, it comes in an instant. It comes in the moment that you choose to make the changes. Yeah. It's the moment we change our belief on something. Yeah. So through our life, we hold thoughts that we think repeatedly, the 95% a day, the thoughts of, whatever it is that you've got. So let's say you're eating McDonald's every day. You're holding the thought that I need my McDonald's this morning to feel good. So as you change the belief, I no longer need my McDonald's to feel good, I could replace it with just an egg and a piece of bacon. Then you've changed the thought. You've changed the belief right in that instant. As you believe that and you start to think that over and over and over again, you've created this new reality, this new paradigm. And through my journey with the smoking, and so I mentioned I do a daily practice over a year, but I had meditated over 10 years. I had gone in and out of different guided meditations and just knew to follow my breath to kind of center myself. And then also I knew probably 15 or 20 years ago is when I learned about the breath being the relaxer in smoking. So as I learned that, I would start deep breathing exercises, and I'd get stressed at work when I first started, and I'd be breathing deep, not knowing how to breathe, and my boss would be like, "What's wrong with you? What's going on? Why are you breathing like that?" And I'm like, "That's how I know how to relax, is breathing." So I never really put it and incorporated it all together. I was looking crazy, but I do believe, meditation or some form of hypnosis, however you want to word that, is what you got to put yourself in. A technique I learned recently is called breathing through the eyes. So just teaching this to people, you can look up and then look down as you breathe down. And as you breathe down, you let everything down. And as you look up, you breathe in. And as you look down, you let everything down. You do that about 10 times, and that's a way to get yourself into self-hypnosis. And I just learned that, and it really works. So the goal is you write down 3 intentions. So let's say you have an addiction, and it's to cigarettes. So 1, you want to be a non-smoker is your first intention. 2, you are no longer buying cigarettes. And 3, you're no longer jealous of people who smoke. You write those 3 intentions down, you do that, and then you set a time limit in your mind. So you can do it in any order. You can write the intention, set the time limit. Okay, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes, and set the timer for 20 if you go into a trance. Do that breathing about 10 times, and then just sit. You should be in kind of a floaty state, and just sit and breathe. And if you start thinking, think, and then just try to remember to come back to your breath. And seriously, that right there will make a shift in your paradigm. It'll make a shift in your life and change right there. And, I think through this, I've learned about life coaching, and I've learned about successful people like Andrew Carnegie, like how did he get so successful? And Henry Ford, how did he get so successful? And I started to read about these guys, and I found a guy named Napoleon Hill who wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich, which a lot of people know of. It's sold like 80 million copies. And as I read that book, he talks about all this stuff in the 1930s. He's talking about breath work. He's talking about, hypnosis. He's talking about setting intentions and setting goals and the fears and limiting beliefs that we hold and getting rid of those. And it's really interesting because right after he wrote that book, he wrote another book called Outwitting the Devil. And this book is a conversation with him and the devil. Now, whether that's the devil in his mind, which I think we all have, or what, he has this interview with him, and he goes back and forth in this interview of, okay, devil, how do you get me to smoke cigarettes? How are you so good at wrapping all the people into smoking your cigarettes? Because the devil actually talks about smoking, and this is in the 1930s when it just became a big boom. And he interviews the devil about smoking. And it's just really interesting how it unfolds. And the devil gives these detailed responses, and then also evasion of, hey, I'm not going to answer that because if you get this knowledge, you'll help millions of people quit smoking. And hey, I'm not going to answer. And he plays this whole story out. And I listened to it on audiobook. And the way the audiobook runs is you have the nice guy, Napoleon Hill, and you have the devil in a totally different voice, a dark, deep voice. And it's really, that book, I listened to it before I read Think and Grow Rich. And that book changed my life. I was like, what is this? How did this guy know all this stuff? And he goes into all kinds of topics like the public education system that we're seeing needs a major reform. Yeah. And as I grew up in it, look at the limiting beliefs it put on me. And so, I agree with that too. And so it's just just so profound as I stepped onto this journey, the different things I found, not just in spirituality, but self-help and self-improvement with Bob Proctor, Napoleon Hill, the Stoicism with Marcus Aurelius and the other Stoics. And, then getting into kind of more woo-woo stuff like yoga, Shakti, chakras, and then Taoism, Qi, and then into more real life stuff with the heart math I was talking about, and NLP and hypnotherapy. Those are all real things too that are, prevalent, that are growing trends among society, and they've been around since the 70s, 50s even. I mean, hypnosis has been around since the 19th century when they started to document it. I mean, who knows how long people have been hypnotized by other people talking words to them in a particular order. So, it's really, really interesting, all the stuff that I've found. But I think as we wrap this up, that yoga and chanting, like chanting Om and chanting Ram, Lam, the chakra sounds, I think those really have shown me the most power. And I think that what we are looking for is that connection to spirit. As Michael Seeley, I think is his name, wrote a book called The Untethered Soul. And in his book, he talks about our connection to spirit just being that stillness and that awareness that you're the thinking mind and the knowing mind. And he also talks about having a voice inside your head. Like before I got on this podcast, I'm like, well, does the room look good enough? And I'm not actually saying this. Something inside my head was saying this while I'm thinking, whatever. And then I was like, wait, who's talking? Am I talking? Or, and then as you start to become aware of that and you start to really focus on that, that's really the deepest level of meditation. And I think there's just so much knowledge and insight out there that does serve. And so I think it's really like an alchemist did back in the time. To make gold, you had to try different techniques, different combinations. And I think in this day and age, with all of the information readily available about spirit, about what's true with the pyramid and all of the ancient philosophies and traditions, you have to really take what serves you from those ancient texts, from the Bible, from God, from all of the stories we were taught as kids, and let go of what doesn't. And I think that letting go, as soon as you let go of the story and you realize you're in this moment now, and this moment now is going to be your new story, you make the shift, you make the change. So it all comes down to those two words, letting go, letting God, Mm-hmm. And I think after all of this journey, after all my profound shifts and weight loss and everything, that's what I go back to. Why am I angry? because I'm holding on to this. Oh, wait, I'm not angry anymore. I've let that go. Why am I anxious right now? What am I worried about? Oh, my gosh. I'm worried about that from a week ago. Let that. It's over. I got this moment right now. Look at all the things I have to be grateful for. And that's another great way to get right into it. You just write down for 10 minutes, set a timer, write down everything you're grateful for. Say, I am grateful for my house, my car, my life, my health. And you just go 10 minutes, as many things as you can think of. And trust me, you'll think of things for 10 minutes that you can be grateful for. So,
I like to see everybody succeed, right? I want to see everybody achieve their dreams. That's not going to happen, but there's things you can do to kind of take steps in that direction to do what you love for a living, which is a big one for me. But I love to see when people who I consider my tribe start stepping out and just start to see them, especially when there's some time there. So I try to I wouldn't say I take you under my wing, but I try to help you and give you the game and, hey, this works, this don't work. I mean, I do this on the podcast for everybody, but it's something about those people who are connected to me, whether it's who believe in me and join through Patreon or Discord, just people who are in my life, I guess we'll say that. So and there's a bunch of you guys. You're one of them. I mean, I could just start naming. Most of them are in chat right now. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we go on and on. We got Nicole, Chris, Ali, Kenny. I mean, we could keep going. I mean, but yeah,
and it's good. It's good to see. I mean, and there's setbacks, there's triumphs, but I've watched them and I've tried to, walk with them essentially, right? That's what we're supposed to do, and seeing people make strides and I'm helping people and stuff like that. And I've been telling you for some time because I know what you want to do. Most people who, are led to my work, a lot of people just inwardly, they want to do what I'm doing or something similar, that they want to pursue their passions for a living and get paid for it, right? So I'm trying to help people figure out ways to do that. And then at the same time, I'm trying to figure out other ways to do it, right? Different ways to monetize your platform and, do what you love for a living versus, going to work and doing what you hate for a living. If you love your job, cool. But if you hate or you loathe, like, I can't believe I got to do this, I would rather be fishing. Well, let's learn how to fish for a living, whatever the case is, So I see you and your story, man, and we've been hanging out, a lot, and you show up for School of the Mystics every Thursday. You share your truth and stuff like that. So, and I've been sharing with you, what you should do. Hey, I see a lot of healers doing this. I see a lot of people who practice Reiki going live in chat rooms and booking sessions and stuff like that on Facebook and stuff. And I remember just encouraging you to do it. And you're like, okay, it's coming, man. I'm getting ready. So just kind of lining things up. You kind of know in your own heart what you got to kind of get out the way before you step into that. Most people already know that. I was having a bad day, man, 3 weeks ago, whatever. Just a weird day. I don't know why. Just the energies, feeling depressed. It sits on you sometimes. It's hard to get out from up under it. And I was trying to get out from up under it for that day and trying to, say positive affirmations and stuff. But I remember I got an alert that you went live in a Facebook group, and I think it was for the first time, and you were doing readings for people. And I was like, we're winning, baby. We're doing it. So when I seen you go live and start doing that, and it just washed over me. I'm like, all right, it's working, man. We're helping people. Yeah. We're changing the world. And I felt that. Raising people up and doing it, man. For you stepping out, that's something that you want to do full time, right? You want to coach people. You want to share some of the things that have helped you and some of the things that are working for you, meditation, Reiki, yoga, all of these stuff, be able to impart that to people through private consultations and stuff. And you started doing that. Talk a little bit about that, man, where you're headed and even going live.
So, I mean, just going back to our story, I found you on Spotify by typing in Abraham Hicks. You have the track on there, Ghost. And man, I fell in love with it. I was like, what is this? Because it has not only Abe Hicks on it, but it has, he's been on the podcast and
Hope Medford.
No, well, you have that track too, but no, it's maybe it's not
James
the track
Gilliland.
I'm thinking of,
James
but it's
Gilliland
a clip from Coast to Coast.
James Gilliland is who it is speaking.
Yeah. And so I heard that, and I heard James Gilliland talking to this guy speaking an alien language, and I'm like, what is this, man? Because I grew up on Coast to Coast. Yeah. So I really delved into all your discography and your tracks, and I'm like, man, all this, I can listen to this guy all day. Like, for real, man. at one track after another, I fell in love with it. So that kind of set me off. And then I started to find out you had the podcast, and I was just getting into podcasts. So I started to listen to your guests, and I was like, whoa, he's interviewing some really cool people, talking about some really cool topics. So I was like, yeah, I got to get in. And then joining the School of Mystics, getting on the Patreon, all that, man, just falling in to this path. And man, you've been a great inspiration as far as doing what you're doing with this podcast and getting the truth out there, giving us more knowledge to take what serves us, but also just being there as a mentor, as a support to a lot of us that are dealing with the real life struggles that we're all going through. We're working hard, to try and make a buck, and dealing with emotional turmoil in between. We're trying to raise families. We're trying to do these things. So having a community, having a tribe to fall back to, having that Discord to go back into and say, what's going on in here? Oh, look at this. There's something funny to look at, something to make you smile. Man, there were so many times that as I took this path, friends just started away. Crazy, you're doing woo-woo stuff, whatever. And they didn't resonate. Like attracts like, right? So I kind of went off on my own. And then as I found you guys, I found a connection again. I found laughter. I found, that. And I think they say kids laugh something like 300 times a day, and adults only do it 20. And it's sad statistic. But I mean, laughter is what we need. Joy is what we're here to do, right? So I think, just having that connection with you guys has been great. But as far as what my goals are, I mean, I'm in the in-between point where I like my job, but I don't love my job. You know what I mean? I do well. I'm successful in my area for the job that I have. So I'm in the illusion, is how I'll put it, of, yeah, I work 9 to 5. I've got my own parking spot. I've got dental. I've got healthcare. I've got a 401k reimbursement. I've got it good. But I'm also in between point where, look at these successful people. Would Henry Ford have created the Ford Motor Company by working in a 9 to 5 like I'm doing? Would Napoleon Hill have been as successful with his book if he didn't go out and do his own thing and study all the people that he studied? Would Bob Proctor be where he's at if he had just settled for a 9 to 5 because he had a parking spot, dental, and a 401k match? And then when I ask myself these real questions, I get real answers, and I'm like, well, no. And then I ask, even deeper questions. Well, what do I love? What do I love to do? I like to help people. What are my core beliefs? What are my core strengths? I'm compassionate. I'm caring. I'm kind. So, yeah, I'm definitely right there where I want to, and as I've done this self-discovery, I've done this, what they call shadow work. I've uncovered my shadow self, and I've uncovered my true core beliefs. And done that work, and that's that delayed gratification. That takes some time. That takes some energy. That took 2 years of delving into different topics and learning. I've discovered, I have this path. I want to help people. I have this innate psychic ability that I think everybody carries, to where I can use tools like, tarot cards or whatever, and I can translate those messages to people's lives and help. So that's what you're talking about, going live. I was just reading some tarot cards off for people. I would just, ask them, hey, tell me a question. I'd read the answer off the card, and they're like, oh, that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. I didn't get one comment out of like 3 lives that said that doesn't make any sense. Everybody's like, that makes sense. I'm like, all right, well, let's go with it. Booster. That's cool. I'm good with that. I'm just one to guide and help, any way I can. But I think my end goal in this path is to be a coach to people, be a mentor to people, and just help people understand the shortcuts are available. You don't have to take this hard road that I took. You don't have to go through years of McDonald's, through years of alcohol addiction, through years of cigarette addiction before you realize you can be healthy and successful. You just have to know the right thought patterns, the right techniques, and just apply yourself. And I think that I'm getting closer and closer to fully understanding that for myself. And as I do understand it for myself, and I do make it through days and weeks and months at a time without anxiety, without worry, without frustration, because I'm human too. I'm dealing with these emotions daily too. As I start to heal myself even further and I start to really get more centered, then I'm definitely right there to start up a life coaching program, start up like a hypnotherapy type of situation where I can use certain words to let people enter that trance state. and then I can use other words to help heal a lot quicker, heal the subconscious mind in a trance by saying, that limiting belief no longer serves you. You are now empowered to do whatever you want. When you see the color blue, which is your favorite color, you're going to realize how empowered you are. Just stuff like that. Just simple words, simple sentences can transform people and make them find and follow God, if that's their belief. It can help them find and follow Vipassana meditation, if that's their belief. It can help them, incorporate breath work into any stressful situation. So there's so much that can be incorporated to help people. So yeah, I think my end goal is to do that, to start a coaching program, get people some advice, get people on the right track with a certain plan that may have worked for me or that I've found that worked for others. And then just, help be there as a support to people, to kind of just relay, hey, this worked for me. I had that struggle too, or I had a struggle similar to that, and it's okay you relapsed. It's okay you gave into that cheesecake while you're doing keto. Just now is the moment to make the next choice. Now is the moment to, all right, well, too bad I had cheesecake yesterday. Time to eat a salad with ranch dressing. 3 days in a row. Got to go back into keto. And so keto is a good one because when you go into keto, it changes your whole physiology from using carbs to fat for energy. So for 3 days, you're using carbs for energy. And on day 3 is what the average is, you use fat. And if you get into what's called ketosis, which is called why it's called keto, then you're using fat for energy, which is why I burned 110 pounds in 10 months, because I was burning off all my excess fat. And if you eat more than 20 carbs in the day, or if you eat even like 30 or 40, or you eat just that one piece of bread, or you have that one drink of Coke, then it can throw you out of ketosis. It can throw you back to carbs. And then you have to start the whole process over. So I think that helps too with that particular diet. But it's all things. If I take one drag of a cigarette, guess what? I'm a smoker again. Even one drag. If I get in a car accident, I deal with some traumatic event, trust me, I've dealt with them in the last 5 years. And I've wanted to smoke that cigarette. I've wanted to grab one and light it up. And just choose consciously, no, I'm not going to take that drag. I'm not going to take that cigarette being offered. I'm not going to do it. And that's what you got to do. You got to train your mind. You got to train your thoughts. So.
Awesome, brother. Well, if somebody wants to hit you up for a private session or follow your work on social media, what you do, what's the best place to send them?
I'd say Instagram. I try to keep that up to date. I like to just throw out photos of my family and my stuff. And then I have a link tied to like a blog and a website that I'm running there that offer a few services. So my Instagram is Waldowski. So my name is in there. It's Instagram /Waldowski. So WALDOWSKIAN. And you can check me out there. It's just a public Instagram with some photos and some of my kids' photos and stuff like that, just seeing an insight into my life over the last couple of years. And then, like I said, I have a link to connect with me there on a deeper level to a web page and to just, find out more about me, find out more about what I do. But definitely just if you have any questions about my life or just feel like you need some help or guidance in any area, just message me, and I'm happy to reach back out and talk to you and see, if I can offer any advice. So.
Good stuff, brother. Well, Fred Lynch has a comment here. He says, Andrew, you'll be amazing as a coach. Your compassion and knowledge is felt and appreciated. Do your thing,
nice.
Bro.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Sure thing. Keep it up, brother. Love you, man. And thank you for coming on the podcast. We'll do it again, man.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right. Peace. Andrew Waldowski, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, man. It's good stuff. I love to see my people doing good, man. Every single one of them, whether they're starting out, already in something, embracing something, everybody's in different places. And just to see them, I check up on people. I see what they're doing. They're looking at the formula that works, and we're just trying to be open and honest so that you can do that, right? With everything. Why hide anything, right? So, like I said, I could just go down the chat right now here on YouTube and name everybody's name who's just been here, they're supporting, and it's something. I don't want to be like, I don't want to be like, you only have so many hours in a day. I help those who help themselves, and I help those who help me, my tribe. I make sure that we do. But you can listen to this podcast and never link in and learn so much, but it's something about those people who are in your circle, man, your inner circle, that we're going to win. Every single one of us. We're going to win. We're going to make it happen. We're going to create it. We're going to breathe upon it. We're going to manifest that stuff. Whatever it is, whatever your dreams are, whatever the Spirit is calling you to, great and mighty things, it's attainable. And we've had the people on the show. And some of these people, like I said, like the pool of people who are in our tribe, there's a bunch of them. And I've been able to see the progress in their life. I've been able to see them take those first steps, go live for the first time. And it does something. Every single one of them. Like I said, I can name them: Allie, Adam, Christy Folks, man, Fluman. I just have to keep scrolling here, man. And just Santiago, man. Everybody, Garner, everybody stepping out. Making the impossible possible. Creating that stuff. You could do it. Every single one of you. And it's, it's very much about that. We talked about rewiring the brain, right? Having these belief systems, reforming those belief systems. Hell, making them up as you go. And it becomes your truth. Making it up. Whatever it is, tell yourself this becomes your truth. So many people are doing it anyway. Believing lies. Believing in stuff that's hurting them. Believing in stuff that's making them depressed. Watching the news, which is well scripted stuff to keep you in this needy state, fear state, right? Move out of that. Turn that crap off. Garbage in, garbage out. Rewire the brain, retrain the mind. The Bible talks about renewing the mind. I talked about Christ consciousness and how we are to walk with the same consciousness that Christ walked in. It's possible. We can do it. If you believe it, nothing shall by any means be impossible for you. Even that, the way I do it, a big part of it, I look at scripture. For me, is very spiritual. It's like a universal law, right? And I just quoted a scripture. That's my truth. If you believe it, you will receive it. My expectation brings about my manifestation. What you believe in, whatever. There's so many, even in the scriptures, man, looking at the stories about how the placebo effect and how when people believed it, it was rendered unto them by faith. Because they believed it by faith, they were able to receive it. The woman with the issue of blood, that I know if I can just get close enough to him and touch the hem of his garment, if I can reach my hand through there, touch the hem of his garment, I'll be healed. The other guy, he had such faith. There was a great multitude of people listening to Jesus speak inside of a house. They needed to get close to him, to touch him. They brought their paraplegic friend upon the roof and tore through the roof. They looked up and these people were coming through the roof because they wanted to get close to Christ. If he could just touch him, if he could just see him, he'll be healed. And it was rendered unto them because of their faith. Jesus would go into other cities. They would doubt him, especially in his hometown, because they knew him. You're Jesus, man. Oh, you're a prophet. You wasn't a prophet, 6 months ago. You wasn't a prophet a year ago, 10 years ago. You was a carpenter. You was out there. So you were a carpenter. You were a mechanic. You were a truck driver. But now you're a prophet? Really? They didn't believe him. Jesus was rendered powerless in his own hometown because of the placebo effect. This is so-called God in the flesh. This is the Messiah. he couldn't heal nobody. He would go into cities and he couldn't heal them because his renown preceded him. They knew who he was. But when he would go into other cities where they heard about him, hey, there's this miracle worker, man. He's healing people. People just look at him and he's healing them. He just point at them. Come and meet a man who told me everything about my life, everything I've ever done. There's a guy out there, he's healing people. And so it just builds up the expectation. It's the placebo effect. It didn't change whether he had power or he didn't. It was the belief that, who do you say that I am? Chris Garner in chat says, by your faith. You'll notice that's a trend throughout the scriptures. Because of your faith, your son is healed. Not because of my faith, because of your faith. And I try to, by the works that I do, you will be able to believe because of the works. And then by the works that I do, that greater things shall you do, is what Jesus said. Greater things. The placebo effect is something else, man. Your expectation brings about your manifestation. Or the opposite, you know what I'm saying? Whether you just doubt, I'll never do it. My time has passed me up. Too many people. I stutter. Man, I'm a candidate for that, man. It's hard for me sometimes to formulate a sentence. I stutter. You should have heard my early stuff. Some of you have, and I've come a long way. I've worked at it, right? But that and doing guided meditations, you know, and feeling like that I'm not qualified to do that I don't have such a soothing voice. And I sound even Fred, he's like, in chat, he's like, Truthstick, I could tell you're ghetto, man. Your ghetto comes out every now and then. So you're doing like guided meditations by this ghetto rapper, you know what I'm saying? So for me, inwardly, if I was to look at that stuff, I'm like, man, that's for somebody else, somebody who's more well-spoken, somebody has a more soothing voice. But I would try to limit myself and say, you know what? I know the power of my voice. I know the power of belief. I know the power of placebo. I know the power of an encounter with God. Let me take that, what I've done with my music. It's been pre-recorded and it's been polished. Let me try to create an encounter with God through a guided meditation. See what happens. Oh my God. I did it. They're available. Changing people's lives. The feedback that I'm getting is amazing. It's awesome. Fred says, us ghetto folks need a ghetto voice. You know.
Shalom, be Yeshua, peace in Jesus, much love.
Thank you for the super chat, Brett Stacy. Brett Stacy just donated $50, man. Thank you so much for that. That means a lot. It really does. But you got to prophesy over yourself, man. That's big. The Bible says the promises of God are yes and amen. Yes and amen. It's going to happen. Essentially, that's universal law. Yes, the universe responds to whatever you put out there. I'm always going to be broke, man. I'm always going to live in this trailer. I'm always going to be depressed. I'm always going to be overweight. You just accept it. You speak it out. You think about it. You create it. God, the universe responds with yes and amen. Yep, you are. You are going to be fat. You are going to be overweight. You're always going to be alone. You're always going to be this. You're always going to be that. Because you're creating it. You're speaking it out. You're thinking those thoughts. Thoughts are frequencies. They come back to you. Try to reverse the curse. What's the opposite? You have to do a little work. It's just not for everybody. If you do the work, the universe lines up with you. You line up with the will of God for your life. Start speaking those positive affirmations. Trust me, it happens to the best of us. Like, we all have those days, weeks, months, years, whatever it is. You just get into this loathing until you finally just say, look, I got to do something. I got to make something happen. And if it's a day, if I feel it coming on, I put on positive music. I put on worship music. The Bible talks about to sing in psalms and spiritual songs over yourself. Begin to sing over yourself. Create that atmosphere. And that's what you're doing when you're quoting the scriptures, right? For me, that's universal law. I'm the head and not the tail. I'm more than a conqueror. I could do all things through Christ who is my strength. Those aren't maybes. Those are facts. That's a matter of fact. I have to retrain my mind. Having a bad day, I'm always going to be broke. I'm never going to be able to fulfill my dreams. My family is cursed. I've never, these weird things that come up in your mind. It's like, hold on, I'm blessed beyond the curse. The scripture says that I'm blessed just simply because I believe. I'm blessed. All of these positive affirmations, I quote them over myself, man. I have to retrain my mind. The scripture says that if there be anything true, if there be anything noble, anything pure, think about these things. That's why I try not to get caught up in watching conspiracy theories and debates and stuff like that. And sometimes I'll click on them. I'm sitting here working online and YouTube's up and I'm checking the comments and something will pop up. And I'll click on it. I have to cut no, I can't watch that. I can't watch that. Think about these things. There's a reason. Garbage in, garbage out. I have made a covenant with my eyes that I may not behold the evil thing. Making a covenant with your eyes. And the eyes and the ears are the windows to the soul. It's big. The meditations, speaking those positive affirmations over yourself. When you begin to look at things differently, when you begin to change the way that you look at things, the things that you're looking at change, especially in your own life. Will it to happen? Prayer is so powerful. It's more, and to me, prayer is more powerful than just asking God or hoping that God will show up. I understand the power of prayer, the power of spoken word, just in general, from a metaphysical level, even the power of spoken word, the power of vibration when we break this stuff down. So as I'm praying, I'm prophesying. For the most part, I'm not asking anymore. I'm one with the Father. I understand his heart. I understand his vision. Now, there's times where we have to go. I go within to kind of get that vision, right? I go within to make sure I'm on the right path and make sure that the steps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord. Make sure that I'm righteous, man. That I'm made right with God by faith. I'm justified by faith through Christ. That's my belief. So I go in to do that in the secret place with God. And so there's a conversation, there's a relationship. But outside of that, I have to take that with me. He says, you go within, get into the secret place, get into the quiet place. I'll tell you things that you don't know and can't find out by any other means. No matter how many YouTube videos you watch, no matter how many books you read, I've got some things that are reserved that if you come within, if you come and meet with me in the secret place, I'll tell them to you. I'll let you shout them from the rooftops. Go in there, get that, bring it out. How do we create? How do we manifest? We begin to prophesy over ourselves, over our situations, not just ourselves. That's kind of selfish if you keep it to yourself. Share it with others. Prophesy over your friends, your loved ones. Teach people how to do it. I can help you. I can, I'm going to have to keep helping you. But let me show you. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for the day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Let me teach you these principles, man, that have helped me. That's all I can. I can only give you what's helping me. I can't give you what's helped another person. I mean, we can look at them and learn, obviously, and there's those principles too, but my truth is what's helped me, what's, physically manifested in my life through experience. Prophesy. The power of prayer, the power of spoken word, and just speaking that stuff over yourself. Look up Bible promises. I remember when I first came to Christ, man, I bought it was the DC Talk Bible promise book. DC Talk made a version, and it was a good one, man. There was some good scriptures, but anything that you were dealing with, there were scriptures on it. There were scriptures on it. A headache, anxiety, fear, self-control. And you have all these scriptures. And you start, man, this is truth. Thy word is truth. True, let me speak it over myself, see what happens. You find a change. You find a peace that comes upon you. Instead of looking at the situation, we change the situation. We change the vibration. When he's talking about Christ in the scriptures, they were on, the disciples were on a boat, and The storms were coming, the winds and the waves. We're all on this boat together. We face the winds and waves of life, the trials and tribulation, the bills. That's a pretty strong wind at time. Taxes. Like, there's a bunch of different winds and waves that we have to deal with. The loss of a loved one, anxiety, obesity, whatever. Like, there's winds and waves that come against our ship, and it looks like it's about to flip over. You have two instances. One where Jesus is asleep on the ship, where they're traveling with him. They're like, well, how is he sleeping in the midst of this storm? Wake up. Help us throw some water out. Physically, what can we do? So Jesus wakes up, looks around at them, and he rebukes them. He's like, why are y'all freaking out? Y'all, this is just wind and rain. Why are you freaking out? We're okay. We got a higher calling. This isn't how our story ends. This isn't how your story ends. This is just the beginning. It's not how it ends. So Jesus wakes up and he just speaks to the wind and rain, and he silences it. Y'all quit freaking out. Shh. Eventually you learn how to do that. As a believer, as a person of faith, as a person with power and authority, you learn to speak to the winds and waves in your own life and in the lives of those around you. Prophesy it. Prophesy to the four winds. This that up. The scriptures, it uses that a lot, prophesying to the wind. The four winds. Jesus woke up and he said, who is this man who has that even the winds and waves obey him? And that's symbolic about the winds and waves in your life. You have to be able to prophesy. Sometimes you don't feel like it. Sometimes you don't know if you're going to, where your next meal's coming from. But you've always been taken care of. So going through that stuff, you learn not to freak out. It takes a couple times going through it until you learn. You learn by repetition. Repetition reduces resistance. You start seeing the same trials coming up. You see the same wind. You know, it's like a calm before the storm. You can feel it. The atmosphere feels different. And you know what to do. Okay, first thing I know to do. The first goal is not to freak out. Don't freak out. That's the test. And the Father's like, do you really trust me? Do you really believe me? You've been telling everybody all this stuff, but do you really believe me? Let me test you. There's a test that comes, a trial that comes. You pass it. You keep that principle. It becomes a law, a universal law, not just for you, but for everyone. When in doubt, do this. Do that. It begins to work. You add that to your arsenal. New levels, new devils, greater victories, bigger giants, slaying the giants in your own life. The giants of whatever, alcoholism, pornography addiction, mocking God, mocking your calling. The giants in the land. You see where you're supposed to go, but there's a giant in between. And there's like no way that you can defeat him on your own because he's too big. He's a giant. A Nephilim. How do I get there? Because I'm supposed to be on the other side. I got to get past him. How do I do it? What have you been doing? What has God already given you? What do you love to do? What has God given you? Not what has God given me, or God has given Abraham Hicks, or God has whoever, but what has God given you? What has God put within you? David was the only one scared, the only one who wasn't scared enough to go and face the giant, who was mocking their God. The God of Israel's nothing. He's a laughing stock of all the other gods. You know, they're mocking their gods, and everybody's scared to tell them, stand up against him. David's like, hold on. Y'all gonna let this big ogre talk about my God? You don't know what he's done for me. You don't know where he's brought me through. You don't know. Okay. I bet you he won't say that to me. Bet you he won't. Okay, David, since you want to go take him out? Take my armor. I've got some new armor. I've never used it. So the little David, they put the armor on him and they give him a big old sword. He's got this big old clinky armor. He's like, I'm going to go fight the giant. He put him and said, look, this ain't me. This ain't me. I can't I can't even move around. I don't feel comfortable. I'm putting on your clothing. That's symbolic. What has God given you? Not what God has given me, not what God has given somebody else, but what has God given you? Where has he brought you from? He's going to send you back to it. It's already within you. He takes the armor off and he grabs his slingshot, his sling and his stone. That's what he had. He was really good with a slingshot. How are you going to kill a giant with a slingshot? With a little satchel and a stone. He's killed all kind of other animals with it. He's been practicing. You got to practice to get to the giants. He practiced by watching over the sheep. That's what he did. He was a shepherd. And so anytime a wolf would come to try to get the sheep, he practiced on that wolf. Coyotes, foxes, trying to get that sheep. A lion, bears, getting bigger. Oh, a giant? Okay, that's next level. I can take a giant out. And he's cursing my God? Okay. Let me take this, slinging my stone. I'm going to do it. He goes up. All the nations are watching. He goes up, slings it. Wow, he's getting ready to throw it. Throws the rock, throws a stone, hits the giant in the forehead. Kills him instantly with the rock, just right in his forehead. With what God has already given him. Not something new, but what was already there. Been cultivating it your whole life. It's different for everybody. What is that? He goes up to the giant. He picks up his sword, a big sword, picks it up and he just finishes him off, cuts his head off with his own sword and holds the head up in victory. And they was able to go into and possess the promised land. So in between where you are and into your promised land, there's going to be a giant. In the midst of the wilderness, there's going to be a golden calf, idolatry, little shiny things that kind of catch your attention, takes you off focus for some time. Don't worship it. Don't stay too long. It's a test. Other things are going to come too. There's going to be other giants. There's going to be other idols. There's going to be other people. There's going to be other people who do it certain ways, but you have to stand for your truth and what God has given you. You can't do me. You got to do you. You can't. We're so, and we were talking about earlier in the chat, like how when we're young, we're influenced by a lot of people. And Andrew was talking about how, he would see people and he would try to act like them, the stoners, the whatever they call it, people groups and stuff. You want to fit in. So it's okay, I got to start talking like this. I have to look like this. I have to wear these clothing to fit in. He's talking about doing it as a kid, and somebody in the chat said, I think it was Home Sauce, or he says, we all do that as kids. We want to fit in. It's people who do that as adults. You get around people and you start acting like them. You're trying to fit in. You're like a chameleon. You say things because you know that they'll like it. You want to fit in. Maybe it's gossip. Maybe when you get around these people, you start gossiping about other people because you know that they don't like them. Check yourself. Gossip and backbiting, that's a big deal. It's a really big deal. Don't do it. Well, I know they don't like them, so let me act like I don't like them. It's deep. Know thyself. You can feel it. I felt it. You're like a chameleon. Why when I get around these people, I always want to smoke weed? Why when I get around these people, I want to drink? Why when I get around these people, I curse? It's different for everybody. But I believe, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Find you some good people, man. Get around them. Let them influence you. Let good people influence you. And I believe that spending time in the presence of God, I believe in spending time with Christ through the Holy Spirit, spending time with them, you'll be a chameleon as well. You begin to talk like Jesus. You begin to look like Jesus, smell like Jesus, like the things that he likes, hate the things that he hates. Oh, you've been hanging with Christ. Okay. Now you're talking like Jesus. Now you know what I'm saying? I believe it, man. That the scripture says that these signs shall follow them that believe. If you believe, if you're walking in the Spirit, you're going to have self-control. You're going to carry those fruits. That's how we judge it. Don't cast off restraint, man. Keep your standards up. Make something happen. Quote them scriptures over yourself, man. It's powerful. Positive affirmations, whether it's scriptures or not. I mean, that's how it works. Retraining the mind, retraining the brains, the nodes in the mind. So we just released the app. It's still in the early development phases right now. It's a meditation app, and it's still very early, but it's available if you want it. And one of my meditations is on there right now. I'm working with a buddy of mine, Kenneth, and him and his wife are working on it. But it's a meditation app, and I'm going to be putting a lot of meditations on there. It's called Presence, 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 Zen with a Z, Presence, the Presence app. I'll put a link in the description and stuff. Y'all check that out. So hopefully that does good things. We've been working on that for a while, but it's still early on, and it's only for Android right now. They're getting it ready for the iPhone. Chris Bars is commenting he wants the iPhone version, so that's something that we're working on. Also, too, if you guys missed it, I was on the podcast with John Santiago. I did his show earlier this week. It was really good. We had a great conversation. So y'all make sure y'all subscribe to his channel and go check out his work too. And so he's one of the brethren. So make sure y'all check that out. We had a good talk. Also tonight, I'm going to be doing another podcast here tonight after the School of the Mystics. Probably only do an hour of the School of the Mystics, and I'm supposed to be interviewing Bill Bean tonight. So Bill Bean was supposed to go live Tuesday night, but something came up. He had to deliver it instead. He had to go take care of and fly out of town. So we're going to do that tonight. Bill Bean will be on the show tonight, so that's going to be good. I was talking about earlier, like I posted something on Facebook just about going down rabbit trails, right? You're watching a video on YouTube. You're watching weight training videos or workout videos, and then it leads some thumbnail, some title, clickbait, or whatever. You click on a video, and then you go down this rabbit hole watching 17 videos about whatever the weird thing is, right? 17 True Seeker podcasts, 17 whatever. I mean, some of you guys, that's how you found this podcast, right? But it's kind of weird. Like, what are some of the weird things that you've went down those holes watching? Flat Earth is some that consumes people. They watch one Flat Earth video and they're consumed. Sometimes, if you're not careful, man, watching those little videos can change your life, either for good or bad. I remember clicking, maybe the first time clicking on a Hebrew Israelite video. Back in the time I was looking for something like that, I found it. I was hooked for a couple years. I converted essentially. Like I started, you know what I'm saying? They won me over, but with their videos, and started going down those weird rabbit holes. I watched another rabbit hole video essentially that pulled me in that I didn't care about this stuff until I clicked the video. Then I'm watching 7-8 videos. I'm like, what am I doing? Watching all these videos. One of them was I don't know his last name, Chris something, but he killed his wife and kids. So for some reason, there was like a 2-minute video. I clicked it. Here's him. This is how we caught him. Oh, yeah, why not? Watch it for a minute. And then there's all these other videos. Here's the footage of him lying to police. Here's this and here's that and here's what he was doing. I'm starting to watch. I'm like, man, I'm eight videos in. This thing grabbed me. There's always those things on YouTube, and they're suggesting the weirdest videos. Like, it's so weird how they're doing with the algorithms, man. With that being said, make sure y'all click notifications on the YouTube videos for those of you watching live, or if you're listening on the podcast app, subscribe to me on YouTube and click that notification bell, because I think that's how it works now. They don't even show you the people you subscribe to. Like, they've changed up so much that you can have 1 million subscribers. They don't care. They have a trending page. Your default YouTube landing page is their recommended videos for you. And for some reason, in my recommended videos, they recommended me watching a dog training video of this guy filming him going into he's like a dog whisperer, but they're just filming themselves, and I'm watching this guy wrestle pit bulls and stuff and train them and try to get them to be better dogs. And my wife's in here with me, and she's like, "What are you watching?" I was like, "I don't know. It's interesting, you know." And you find yourself going down these little rabbit holes for an hour, 2 hour, days, months, years, watching certain types of videos or whatever. It's insane. But the whole thing with YouTube shifting has led me down another rabbit hole, and I'm going to talk about this because this weird rabbit hole, just maybe since yesterday. I know who he is. I've had a couple interactions with him, but the Vigilant Christian, I think a lot of people in my audience check out some of his stuff and then know who he is. There's a bunch of aspects with this guy, the Vigilant Christian, because YouTube's changed the algorithms, and just because you have a lot of subscribers doesn't mean you're going to get those views anymore. I can upload a video and it gets like 60 views, 100 views. I've got almost 10,000 subscribers now on YouTube. They're not getting alerts. I don't think that out of that, like 100, as much as people interact and stuff, there's something that's going on with that. And I could just see it going on. But he's feeling that. The Vigilant Christian, somebody who's got, you know, hundreds of thousands at this point of subscribers. And he got big off of, you know, making exposed videos. In the early days of YouTube and Christianity, that was a big thing. And obviously it still is. People love to kick people when they're down. It's what happens. But the Vigilant Christian, he's in some weird place right now, but he got big by exposing people or showing why you're not Christian enough. And anything that was trending, anything that was in the news, he would do a video and show you how they were in the Illuminati. And it's really sad. Like I've done it, you know, years ago, and I think I paid for that karma. I think that all that stuff came back to bite me on the butt some years later when I got into the Illuminati, or I got into understanding what false prophets were in the Bible, and then pointing out false prophets and calling out names and say, "Hey, stay away from this guy, stay away from this pastor." Like we were really bad with that stuff back in the day, calling out names, and we would street preach and, you know, call out names and stuff. And I feel like when I went through my awakening, I became the guy that people started pointing at from the Christian perspective. Like, "Hey, watch out for True Seeker. He's a devil worshiper now. He's listening to Masons," you know, all kind of stuff, like Manly P. Hall. And it's because people have done videos on Jordan Maxwell, Manly P. Hall, Michael Tessarian. There's a video about anybody out there with a platform exposing them. Anybody who has the platform, I guarantee you can find an exposed video. And if you can't, hit me up, because Brother Wayne will make one. I'll get Brother Wayne to make an exposed video. Nobody gets a pass. There's exposed videos on everybody once you get a platform. It just comes with the territory. But I've seen what happened to the Vigilant Christian right now. Just because I've clicked on a video, I don't follow his work, but I clicked on the video that says he's going through some stuff. He's like breaking down, and the YouTube algorithms is like causing him to that's his livelihood. He's able to make a great living off of YouTube videos because he caught the wave early, and it became like a beacon or whatever of exposing people. I mean, he's exposed anybody you could think of. He's probably got a video on all of them. Queen, Yellow Wolf, any rapper, any actress, actor, he does videos, and he does very well. Something in people love to kick somebody when they're down. Misery loves company, and so many people are miserable with their life, miserable with their marriage, miserable with their job, that they just want to know that somebody's doing worse than them because it makes them feel better. So Vigilant Christian, I feel like he's getting a taste of his own medicine. Now he's came out about using drugs, and there was some stuff about homosexuality that he was dealing with, and all types of weird stuff. And it's usually, I'll tell you this, it's usually the ones who are really vigilant, even in the name, the vigilant Christian. Those who are really vigilant about pointing out other people's flaws is usually because they have their own skeletons in the closet, or they have their own insecurity that someone's going to find out that they're gay, or whatever the case is. Like, I'm not gay. See, I expose gay people. Or I'm not a drug addict. See, I expose drug addicts, or whatever the case is. And so, but you put that energy out there, it's going to come back. It's only a matter of time. What you sow, you shall also reap. You're going to reap it. It's going to stack up against you. That's why make sure that when you're moving forward, you're blessing people. You're blessing your enemies. You're helping those who need help in their time of need. When somebody needs help, don't just say, hey, more power to you. Do what you can to help them. Because in due time, it's going to come back. If you're helping people, man, if you're being a friend to those who need a friend, when the tables turn, it's going to come back. So you'll be found wanting, man. When I was going through that stuff, and he calling me a devil worshiper, like everybody reneged, and all my Christian friends or whatever. It was a very dark and lonely time. I've been open about that, and I've seen what happened to me. And then there was another time, like in that same, like right after, where a close friend of ours, we found out that he was a gay porn star, and we've been in Christian metal bands with this guy. We've done music. He was a friend. He had kind of grown distance over the years. That's what happens, but he's still a friend, mutual friend. Everybody knows him, and it became this big laughing stock. And people would send videos. Hey, you know this guy? And I'm like, hey, why are you sending me this? They're like, no, look at the face. Like, oh my God. Like, that's a close friend of mine. We knew he was a model. We knew he was bodybuilding. We didn't know that he was doing gay porn. And it was all of these, like a gay porn star. We didn't even know it, a close friend. And it came out. Everybody knew about it. I mean, people you hadn't talked to in 10 years were calling and messaging you, sending you the pictures of him and videos, and say, hey, have you heard about him? And they got the gossip. He's doing worse than us. Telling everybody, right? And it shocked me. I was like, oh my God, I just couldn't believe it. But I remember talking to a bunch of my Christian friends and church people who we came up with this guy. And they're like, if I see him in public, I'm just going to turn my back on him. I'm not even going to look him in the face. I seen him and I tried to hide my face. I didn't even want to talk to him. And it's okay. And then there was a bunch of people who kept saying that. Oh, if I see him, I'm not even going to. That is disgusting. I can't believe he did that. And how does his wife feel? How does his daughter feel? And all this. Oh, wow. I got to make sure that I don't do that. I need to go out of my way to reach out to this person. Like, there's a bunch of shame. There's a bunch of guilt. Now everybody knows something that you've been trying to hide and be secretive with it because you're in the Bible Belt and you're a gay porn star and you come from the church realm or whatever the case is. I had to make sure, let me hit this guy up, man. So I made sure that I did that only because I had the empathy, because I went through the dark night. I know what it feels like to be all alone or have people talk about you or be the butt of jokes and gossip and, all of this kind of stuff. So when you're going through something, God rewards those, man. You're going to get it back. The law of the universe is yes and amen. The promises of God. Whatever you're putting back is going to come. If you're exposing people and gossiping about people, don't get mad when people start exposing you. Gossiping about you. Finding out about the things that you didn't want them to know. Don't get mad. Expect it. It's coming. Don't get mad at that stuff. The scripture, when it talks about that, it says that don't be, the scripture says that you're going to be justified, not by your faith, not by what you believe, but by your works. What did you do? Don't just say you believe or say, I believe in you or whatever the case is. Do the works, man. Help those people, man, because when you're going through it, you know, you're gonna need somebody there. I found that, and that's universal though. When you get ready to step out and do what you love for a living, when you begin to create something, you have meetings, you have a podcast, you have videos, whatever it is, and you want support. Were you supporting people? That's one of the principles that, like, the people who support me, I make sure that I'm there in their life. I make sure. Whatever it is, when they create something, when they release something, whether it's a like or retweet or reshare, hey, y'all check out his podcast. Y'all check out his show. Why? Because that's why. It's deep, but to see all of that stuff comes back to you, man. No good deed goes overlooked. No bad deed goes unpunished. You might not be able to see it, but it's there. So to see the Vigilant Christian, like, I went down that rabbit hole because now he has all these people like making videos about him, exposing him, laughing, doing commentary, and it's getting a lot of views. They love it. People love it. Oh yeah, I never did like him. Pray for that guy. He's going through some weird stuff right now. Just because you have a platform doesn't mean that you have the character to maintain it. You can manifest it. You can build it. He caught it at the right time. But how do you keep it? Don't let your talent take you someplace that your character can't keep you. You have to be careful. You really do. You can manifest it, but can you keep it? That's what I want to see. How's your consistency? You built some beautiful stuff. You've built something really cool. But I think you've built it upon sand. You didn't build it upon a firm foundation. You didn't. Why? Because when the rain came, it crumbled and fell over. Don't let that be you. Make sure that whatever you're building, whatever you're doing, that you got a word from heaven. That you're working with God versus working against God. Make sure. Because in an instant, you can ruin it all. In an instant. We see a lot of people doing that. Mario, the Vigilant Christian, he reached out to me. I reached out to him some time ago. It's been a couple years now, but I've, hit him up and, tried to show him some of my music and stuff like that. But after having Brandon Barthrop on my show, the Vigilant Christian seen that interview. The crazy cult leader, Brandon Barthrop, had him on my show. Vigilant Christian seen it and said, hey, I want to come on your show and I want to do a debate with this guy. I want to debate him. And so I said, no, you're not. I don't do debates on this show. If you would have caught me several years ago, maybe we could have did it. But I don't debate. No, you need to do it. Get him to get on. Do a debate. I want to do it on your show. And he said, if you don't, I'm going to make a video about him exposing him anyway. So just to see that kind of, it's like everybody who don't agree with you, you're going to make a video exposing them. That's fun. That's good. But what are you going to do when that karma comes back? When the pendulum swings back in your direction? When people make... Now you're crying. Now you got people making videos of you and you're crying. You bit off more than you can chew. Maybe you didn't know it. There's grace there. Submit yourselves to God. There's grace there. You didn't know it. It's okay. Repent. Have a change of heart. Have a change of mind. Return to your first love. Do the first works again. There's grace. You can be restored. Anybody, any of you, you can be restored. There's hope. Everybody needs it. even if you have a big platform. But just to see that whole process, man, I clicked on a video and just started seeing all these people making videos exposing him, and then I jumped into a world or a subculture that I didn't even know existed. That it was a thing that he was going through this stuff and he was doing that, and people were making videos or whatever the case is on him. Like, I didn't even know that, but I clicked on one random video and watched 3 or 4. But pray for that guy, Mario, because he's got a lot of people who watch him. It's a lot less people now. And he's going live crying about it. Like, it's showing some really weird manic sides of him and narcissistic sides that just because you got, 300,000 subscribers, you're getting 1,000 views on a video now. Like, that's when you're big. Like, we just see what the foundation is. You know what I'm saying? It's weird. But pray for that guy, because he had a big platform, or kind of still does. So, Word says back to the yes, and we remain true. It's back to the essence, Word. That's the lyric. Back to the essence. I know it sounds like yes. Back to the yes and remain true. See? It's back to the essence. Back to the essence, remain true. I decipher the truth with my mind renewed, with the chosen few. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about that. Sometimes I don't have nothing to talk about, but it's about coming back to the now moment. That's where the power is. That's where you create stuff. You do that through meditation. You do that through mindfulness. We're talking about that. I believe that's how the majority of the stuff is created, going there to get a game plan into the now moment. Jesus said that to be anxious for nothing. Because when you put your consciousness outside of yourself, outside of the present moment, and you're living in a reality that doesn't exist yet. And you can put the awareness out there, the consciousness out there, speak it, expect it. But to manifest it, you have to come back to the now moment. You have to be in your body. You can't just be thinking about this weekend or thinking about next month or whatever you got coming up. While I'm live right here, I'm gonna somebody's asking me to pull a card for them, and I'm just gonna form this card. I don't even have to tell you what card this is, but I'm just gonna pray for you. That's just for anybody who's dealing with this. But I'm gonna specifically Christy Folks, good friend of mine. She's asking for a card reading or a pull, and I use these Tarot of the Most High cards. I think they're beautiful. They're really cool. I want to make my own very soon, so. I'm gonna pray us out over this whole thing, and I'm going to just speak this blessing over Christy and her family too. So anybody who just needs a touch in your body right now, wherever you are, man, just do what Andrew said. Just take in that deep breath through the nostrils right now. Breathe in that peace. Exhale the doubt, the worry, the fear. Breathe it in again. Peace. Exhale fear, doubt, worry, stress. Just let it all go. Peace of God that surpasses all understanding right now. This is your inheritance. Believe it. It's not lack. It's abundance. That you will be the lender and not the borrower. Everywhere you go, you're not just going to have your hand out asking for something. You can be known as a giver. That you give. You're going to be known for what you're for rather than what you're against. You're for grace. You're for truth. You're for righteousness. You're for restoration. You're for beauty. You're for love. Receive that. Even with this next breath, receive it. Deep breath. Release. And this is the now moment. This is where we go within. Peace of God just to rest upon you. All that uneasiness, the questions right now being removed. Grace being restored again. You just need to be reminded. This is your daily reminder. Peace, God. Receive it, receive it, receive it. Wherever you are, no matter what you're doing, Let your thoughts be continuously upon him, for he cares for you. Cast your cares upon him, for he cares for you. Why not? You try to hold it because you can. It's not good enough. Release it. Let go of what you're holding so that you can receive what God has for you. You have to let go of what you're holding, what you're trying to build. You're doing a good job, but just let it go. Let go of what's good. Great ideas, let it go. In order to receive what's great. Great grace right now, just flowing from the throne of heaven right now to you. Receive it right now according to your faith. Receive it, receive it, receive it. Believe it. My expectation brings about my manifestation. Retrain your mind. Know it. Believe it. Test it. And see that he won't open up the windows of heaven upon your life. Bless right now any negative thoughts, any addictions that you need to let go of right now. We just loose it in the name of Christ. Thank you for your love and for your peace that's coming in like a flood. When the enemy comes in like a flood, the Lord comes in and raises up a standard even higher. Lofty thoughts, creating your reality, creating this life for yourself. You see it. He's given you the vision. It's not to taunt you. It's not to tempt you. It's not to hold it over your head in disbelief. But it's to reach out and grab it. To embrace this life. Peace be upon you. Peace be restored. The years that the enemy tried to take away, peace be restored. Let it be your possession. With each breath, releasing. Right now, just the righteousness being restored unto you, Christy, and whoever needs it. Righteousness. Being made right with God through the work that Christ has already done. Let go of the reins. Let go of the steering wheel. Jesus, take the wheel. Let it go. And just receive the grace right now like a flood. Righteousness being restored. Innocence being restored. Peace, peace, peace. Receive. Amen. In Jesus' name, amen. Good stuff, y'all. Amen. Love wins. Allie says, peace and joy. Ooh, good stuff. Love you guys. Chris Bars, I see your comments, bro. I will see you this weekend, and I will watch that Lady Gaga movie with you. Amen. Allie says, God, we pray for clarity in the dealings with people in our life. We pray for your plans for our life to come into fruition. We pray for peace about the decisions we make every day. Lead us, oh God. Amen and amen. Love you guys, man. Let's do this. Let's make it happen. Great things are ahead. Love each and every one of y'all. And but I'm going to say peace and shalom. God bless.
Your way is so much higher than mine. So much higher than mine. So much deeper than mine. So much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the Truth Seeker podcast, head over to truthseeker.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/truthseeker.